5th edition players to start playing AD&D.
Speaking of that, there he is.
Hey!
He's still connecting the audio, so. There we go.
I need to resubscribe. So there we go.
Can you hear us, Anthony?
I can hear you.
All right. Beautiful.
Awesome. Welcome.
Hello. Hi, Anna.
Hi.
We were just waiting for Alan. I got my preludes going up now.
Yep.
So we always throw the sponsor out.
You don't have any. You don't have any echo from me.
No, you're good.
It's good.
No echo.
Yep. Sounds good.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome. Thank you for coming on. This will be a fun discussion.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it will be.
Yeah. Let me see here.
Yeah, Anthony, I'm a fan of your work, so I have some background questions and questions about inspiration and focus and everything that I have prepared. So.
Yeah, and that's Leslie Reno. He's a Oblivion Seeker on Cannon Fire Discord. Does a lot of writing for let's see, Earth Journals and Visions of Greyhawk and all the other publications we have. So, and he's our lore master, basically.
Oh, great.
Most obscure lore things that I've ever.
Yep.
I mean,
We have so many awesome Greyhawk lore experts, but Les is definitely one of the top
Nice.
ones. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Alan will be on any second. So.
Yep. The only thing I can maybe claim roughly equal is geography itself, but apart from that, I'm learning from all these awesome people in the community, so it's great.
I don't claim anything.
This is fun. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. We're gonna have a good time tonight. Normally we average between 80 and 100 live people there, and so it'll be a good crowd.
Yep. And Anthony, I just warn you, I might have to step away in a few minutes. I have someone coming picking up a dog that we're babysitting for a few minutes, so
okay.
We'll be back again.
Yeah, but we'll be rolling here live still.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, if you want to watch, you can take out the on Twitch. You can pop out the chat if you want to see.
Yeah.
But if not, I can relay questions to you that are coming from the audience. That's not a problem. But then again, Len may take up all the time anyway, and Les may take up all the time anyway. And ask all the questions.
No.
I'm kidding, Les. So, you know me. I'm a jokey jokester. So,
I have to admit, I felt surprised when Alan reached out and said, "Oh, this cat wants to talk to you," and I'm like,
"Oh yeah."
I was like, "Oh, I thought I was completely under the radar."
Did we miss were you at GaryCon and we miss each other?
I went to GaryCon 9.
Okay, so you went last year. Okay, this one.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool.
Because I have when I saw your blog now and saw that you will come on the show, and that was like yesterday, and so I realized, damn, I missed something here. So I'm sorry. I should have been fully immersed in your work already, but I'm not. So it will be.
I'm gonna go to GaryCon next year.
Awesome.
Oh yeah, you should.
Cool.
You definitely should, and have seminars and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, Anthony, I was going to mention to you, and to Jay, I did a quick search on the Cannon Fire Discord, and Alan Grohe, the late lamented Jason Zavoda, and I all singled out Anthony's work as stuff that people who are interested in old school gaming, and even new school gamers who are interested in material that I think would be really helpful to them, should hunt down.
Yep.
So,
really?
Yes.
Well, that's
wouldn't
great.
make that up. Yeah, he's Les is when Les says he's inspired by something, he means it now. Absolutely. So it's a pleasure to have you on.
Definitely.
We're gonna have a fun discussion here. I know we got you for about an hour, so we're gonna the rest of us we're gonna talk necromancers and undead after in the second hour. So
perfect.
Yeah, Al and I both have necromancer class made up, and it's funny how we never talk to each other about them, but they kind of parallel each other, which is neat. So
nice.
Diving into my house rules, deeper into necromancy and stuff too. So
awesome. Yeah, so we'll have some good discussion there too.
Yep.
So I'm just getting the shout outs done here, but yeah, we'll so we are. Look at that. We got a few minutes here. Usually I come on like 6:55, a few minutes early. Why not? We'll get to it. So we'll ask some questions. Just have some fun with the discussion. And don't worry, we're all easygoing here. So.
Perfect.
Yeah. Probably our paths have crossed on Facebook groups a lot too. I think maybe. I know.
I have no social media at all.
Really?
I don't have Facebook. I don't have Twitter. I don't have any of that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't do social media anywhere near as much as I used to, and it
Well,
kind of,
I need to.
yeah.
It was
Well, yeah.
I decided to cull it from my life, and the instant that I did, I felt. This is just personal, of course. I felt so much lighter and free, and
Yes.
I started getting things done again, like
Yep.
writing modules and.
Hey,
I'm going towards that too. So I do some not paid advertising, but when I post something on my blog and stuff, I share it on social media. But I don't keep track of what's happening, and sometimes when I go on, like maybe once every 2 days or something, it's like 200-300 notifications and so on. I check my direct messages. That I keep a track of that, so to speak. But I don't go on and keep looking at my feeds in various and stuff. No, I skipped that for over a year ago, and I feel like I'm better for it. Yeah. For the most part. I'm sure there are things I'm missing, and I'm sorry if I have to, but send me a direct message and I'll get to you eventually. I'm catching up on my email. I think I've just caught up all this stuff after GaryCon and some Comic Crud and stuff, so I think I've covered all of the emails and stuff now.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at email. I will respond pretty quick to email, but for some reason, Jay, your email went into my spam.
They know nothing.
well, that's because I'm an annoyance, probably. So.
Codex Infernum and the Codex Exalted.
Well, that happens. That
No,
you
I'm
get
just
email
kidding.
that
It's
end
all
up
right.
in
In-depth
spam.
knowledge about beings of all dispositions, from the farthest reaches of the heavens
It's all right.
to the darkest.
It all worked out.
wretchedness.
Yeah. That's
Both
the
of these
important bit.
titles
Yeah.
come with new.
So where in the
color
world are you
art, new
located?
creatures,
Or
new
where in the
powers,
States?
like
Yeah.
possessions,
So I
and a
am in
multitude
Austin.
of information,
Okay.
providing
Oh, nice.
lore,
I'm in New Orleans, so.
backgrounds, names,
Cool.
Oh, great.
mechanics,
Southern
stats,
California here.
and
So
much
Hey,
yeah,
more.
Kurt.
I'm a Swede who moved to Southern
These
California
incredible
over 10
tomes,
years
Enoch.
ago.
Hey,
filled
darling.
with demons and angels,
Darling, in the second hour, we're talking
And
necromancers, so right up your alley.
unleashing the powers of good and evil, law and chaos on your table. The Codices
And that's
Infernum
the voice
and
of
Exalted,
Chuck right there.
bringing creatures hallowed and profane into your adventures. Pledge and share today.
All right, let's get this thing rolling here. All right, I want to make sure Alan's not sitting in the lobby. No, he's not.
Games.
All right.
Join the
I'll send
fray.
him. Oh, wait a minute, I got Facebook Messenger. It's probably for him. All right, he said he'll be here in 3 minutes. There you go. All good. Good old Alan there.
I love Alan so much.
Hey,
Yeah, Alan is the facilitator for this, so Alan's been great. So here's a funny story, Anthony. Alan grew up in Merchantville, New Jersey, and I grew up in Barrington, New Jersey, which is like 7 miles apart. We never met each other ever, not once.
You,
I
never ran into through school or
No.
mutual acquaintances or anything like that.
Nope, not until so I'm gonna say the first time I saw Alan's stuff was probably in the 90s. Didn't realize he lived in Jersey, didn't realize because, back then social media. So
Yeah.
it's just so funny that, his family still lives there here too. A lot of his family, so he should be logging in any second. All right, everyone. Good to see a nice, healthy audience coming on early here. Hey, Troy, thanks for the resub. All right. A fun discussion tonight. Great special guest with 3 great co-hosts tonight. So also all fans of Anthony's work. So this will be a really great discussion tonight.
I love your about. It's so cool. Your about page when you list the different the timeline there is awesome.
Yeah, I can synchronize everything with what happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm 5 years ahead of you in life, so to speak. But otherwise, it's a lot of the same here. And I probably, since I grew up in Sweden, we usually got our stuff a year or two afterwards it became big here, so to speak. Sometimes it took, because things were shipped in containers and stuff, so it took like 3-4 months because they usually bundled up. They didn't ship everything every month. A lot of times it was shipped quarterly because that was the cheapest shipping rate, so they kind of bundle up and got a half a container or something and then ship, and in order to get the rates down a bit. So therefore I often saw things 6 months to a year after, and then it took a while for it to get played.
So Anna, you were kind of a young teen when you started playing?
15. Yeah, I was 15 when I started playing. So that was in 79, 80. So yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Welcome. Alan Grohe will be on in a second. Just note, I'm just waiting for him to log in. I'm Jake Gazumba, another Gabbin, our 296th. We're almost to number 300, Anna. We got to do a little special celebration in a couple weeks.
Exactly, we have to. Yep.
With my normal co-host Anna B. Meyer, and Les Reno has joined us, Oblivion Seeker as well, for a special, for a very special guest, Anthony Huso. Did I pronounce that correctly, Huso?
That's right.
Okay. Very nice to meet you. And thank you for coming on. And I guess we should both thank Alan for this facilitation.
Yeah.
Alan's done a lot of great things. He's gotten Rob Kuntz on, and and now you. So this is a wonderful, wonderful. I look forward to this. I know Les did. Les was super excited. I said, "Why don't you just come on? Why don't you just come on, and then you can ask all the questions instead of me relating them in chat since you're on so much." So, Anthony, why don't you give us a little background about yourself and how the evolution came about from gaming to writing to publishing?
So, I mean, I always wanted to write stories, I guess. And so even when I was young, I thought, I'd really love to write novels. And of course, back then when I was 10, I started playing Dungeons and Dragons and sort of cut my teeth on the AD&D books. And played through college, and at some point, I had created this world and this setting, and I thought, well, D&D is great, but I better get serious about this. And so I started to write more in earnest, and I also got into the video game industry, and through contacts there. Mark Laidlaw, who's a great writer. He wrote Dad's Nuke and the 37th Mandala.
Great, yep.
Yeah, he's awesome. And so I got introduced to Paula Garan, who anthologizes a bunch of horror, and she connected me with Tor, and so I got published. And I published 2 novels and worked in video games, and my kids grew up. And then round about 2014, I guess it was, I started to become an empty nester. And at that point, I was sort of like, well, what do I do now? And so I thought, well, there's a lot of things I could do, but why don't I drag out my D&D stuff? And so I did, and we started playing. And then I dusted off some of the stuff, and I thought, the thing that set me on the path to publishing some of this stuff and offering it was just that I'm making all this stuff for my local players, and your players are going to miss at least 75% of what you create. So that's kind of a shame that nobody ever sees it. So why don't I go the extra mile and polish it up a little bit and see if anybody can make use of it? And that's kind of what happened.
Wow. So what year did you actually start? 90s, late 80s?
So it was 1980.
Okay. Oh, same year. Okay. Right at the same time as me. Yeah.
First game of D&D I played was in this kid I met. I met him in 5th grade, and he comes up to me, and he's got that little mustache, 10-year-old early mustache, and heard of D&D? No.
Yeah.
So we played a game out in his tent in his backyard, and that was that.
Oh, that's fantastic. So I have one of it's right below me now, the last page. I'm assuming that's one of your two novels you published. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was the first. Yeah, that was the first book.
Okay, I have it right here. All right, so here, it says Heather. I always forget that. I think that's Alan's wife's name, right? So, yeah, there we go.
Hey, Alan.
Hey guys.
Hello. We're going over right now the back history for Anthony and Alan. Thank you for facilitating this. Really appreciate it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Looking forward to an awesome discussion. So, all right. So the last page, is that in your world, or is that are these novels outside of what you created?
So no, it is in the world,
Okay.
right? But I would caveat that with that it is sort of set at the very end of that world's arc.
Okay.
I took my D&D setting and I decided I'm going to use this setting to write these novels. But when I set out to write the novels, I knew that I was writing a story about the end of a world, right?
Okay.
It's a cataclysmic story, and
oh wow.
And so I knew that I was going to blow everything up, right? I mean, it's spoilers. It's an old book, so too bad. You should have read it earlier.
But it's well worth reading. Excellent.
And so super quick premise was that the premise for these two books was I wanted to have a character presented at the beginning of book one who everybody believed was incapable of love and sort of a lost cause, right? And then at the very end of the second book, you find out that is not the case, right?
Okay.
And so that's sort of the arc of the book. And after I had those books published, I decided to go back to that setting to run my D&D games in.
So in an earlier year, much earlier year.
Earlier,
okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
But also, I think you probably have to say it's kind of a parallel version of it too, because the setting for the book is very much, when you write a novel, you have to go very deep, and so that's kind of its own animal. It's a different facet. And I would say that the version that I use to run my games in is a lot more relaxed. It's more friendly towards Gygaxian, tropes and D&D and that kind of stuff,
Excellent. So when you wrote the books before you started publishing your adventures and your setting, were you a hardcore, like Alan and I are, old school 1E player, or did you evolve a little bit and like, I was playing third edition, or did you stick with it like we did?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I mean, during my hiatus from gaming, I really didn't actually think I would ever play D&D again, to be honest.
Oh, wow.
I just sort of like, after college, I kind of let it go and I focused on other things, and I had some kids and, all that kind of stuff. And so when I returned,
designed a few video games.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah? Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. And so then when I kind of entered that empty nester state, and I decided, okay, yeah, let's do role-playing games again. I re-entered on Pathfinder, and because that's what the kids were playing, right? And I thought, okay, well, all my friends know this system, so I'll try to learn this system, and and so we played that for about 8 months, and I try super hard not to talk smack about other systems, so I'm not going to do that. My heart could not live there, right? And so I said, I'm going to go back to a system that I know, which was AD&D, and my players were very skeptical, and I was nervous because these are all professional game designers. These are like the creative directors of the studio, and so so there's some pressure there because they're not going to show up once a week to play something unless it's really good. They're not that polite. And so I broke out the AD&D books, I reread them all, and I decided, okay, I'm gonna try to run this not like,
thank you, Garner,
not like Gygax himself would run it, not like Ernie would run it, not like Rob would run it. I'm gonna try to run it as much as I can according to the text. And I'm just gonna do that. And I'm going to see what happens, and I'm going to trust those systems and see what respecting those systems implies, and find out what happens. And that's what we did. And they, I think all of my players will say there are some warts, but they love it.
So I agree. I mean, like with the old school play, we've tweaked our system for years. I know Alan has some tweaks here too, and then we're going to talk about some in the second hour. But it's still the base old school system, right? That's what it is. It is, but you make it your own, just like Gary's always said, with setting and your play style. I mean, you're still playing to this day, right? And you probably enjoy it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this year is 10 years, right? We started playing in 2014, so yeah, it'll be 10 years. Our first game was actually on July 27th.
Okay.
And you're running two,
right?
You're running 2 concurrent campaigns, right?
I am now, yes.
That's fantastic.
So I have a group of 6 people that show up on this Monday, and then I have a different group of 6 people that show up on this Monday, and we flip flop. And they're both
oh wow,
they're both playing through the Castle of the Silver Prince. But in parallel.
Yeah, I'm very envious. Yeah. I haven't gotten to do that since college, really. We had 2 campaigns in my Greyhawk campaign for a little while in 2020 for about 8 months before COVID killed the in-person game completely. So,
well, Alan,
I'm surprised I'm doing it.
Alan, awesome. You could have 27 adventuring groups like I have and just be completely on the other end of the spectrum and insane. Right? So
I could not do that, Jay. So I will be happy to leave that territory to you.
Yep.
So all right, so the jump from writer to publisher, self-publishing, I'm assuming, through Lulu, of your when did that occur specifically, and how difficult was it? Was it like, oh my gosh, this is Herculean, or oh man, I got this? So,
well, I don't think it was super hard, because if it was super duper hard, I probably would have just said, I don't want to do this. But I taught myself InDesign, and I decided, well, pay some artists and polish this up, dump it into InDesign, format it, try to figure out how to format crap, and look for a means of distribution. Lulu, I'm the worst self-marketer of all time, right? Like, the only place I publish is through Lulu, which I don't think hardly anybody knows. I've never bothered to go to, drive-through RPG or anything. I guess I just don't care, honestly. I just feel like, hey, here's this stuff. I polished it up. If you can make use of it, awesome. And if it stands on its own and it's good enough for word of mouth to get around, then that's great.
Okay. Well, obviously it has.
Word has gotten around. So.
All right, Les, you're awfully quiet, which scares me.
Oh, no. I'm just enjoying the conversation there.
Yeah, same here.
Very cool. So let's do this, and let's peruse through this. I know we're on a time frame here. So here's your website, which is awesome. The Blue Bard, right?
Right.
Is that a character in the campaign?
Yeah. So this character, Rain, was a moon elf bard who was an NPC back when I played with my friends in high school. And unlike most NPCs, she managed to not die, right? And so she became some kind of, I guess, an icon or a.
Okay. Yeah, something that
You know, I'm just going to throw something out here. Anthony, you were talking about the difference between writing a novel and writing adventure modules.
Yeah.
And I want to say one of the great things, one of the things that I find wonderful about your writing is that a lot of module writers or people who are writing adventures fall into one of two traps. Either they're telling the story and the characters have to hit this beat, then that beat, then that beat for the adventure to quote unquote be successful, or they're copying. How can I put this? They're writing a module according to the formula of old modules,
Right.
but not playtesting it. And one of the things I love, or a couple of the things I love about your work, is that first off, it allows for things to go horribly off the rails. Right. And that poor decision making is appropriately rewarded, shall we say? Yeah. Whereas smart thinking is also appropriately rewarded. I also like the fact that in your work, there's this interplay, I think, between the environment and the encounters. In other words, like the environment is very much, it's in itself a character and a living kind of situation that the players are having to deal with, right, which I think is just wonderful. And it has a very definite, I would say, and I'm sure that I've other people have said this before. If I say decadent, I mean in the sense of Clark Ashton Smith or some of Michael Moorcock or Jack Vance's Dying Earth. A lot of your adventures seem to have that kind of vibe to them. Or if we were to use a D&D comparison, Rob Kuntz's Mar Castle. That kind of vibe. And it's just wonderful. It's just really great. And hats off to you, sir. Hats off to you.
I mean, that's really, really, those are really kind words. And I mean, you put me in a bracket there I'm not sure I deserve, but thank you so much. And yeah, I mean, my belief is that those adventures need to really live in the world and in the place that you've created, while still allowing the dungeon master to do, you know, whatever they need to do to modify it. So provide enough breathing room, but provide enough information to extrapolate, right, and improvise with every encounter. So
yeah, I'm saying I definitely get those kinds of vibes from your work. And that's a good thing. It gets my mind going, where I might read, and I can appreciate people who are doing adventures, old school adventures, that are their take on Hamlet, their take on whatever. But you go that extra mile, and yours has that fresh take on things and that expansive take on things that really gets my own mind going. So even if I'm not using one of your adventures, reading your adventures will trigger my mind thinking about how I can better set up encounters or better set up environments. So
thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for doing it. I mean, it's great stuff.
Yeah, and I think you raised a really cool point, Les, where the environment in Anthony's adventures are fairly distinct, even if they're you know, it's very surface glance kind of normal adventure environment. So you know, you have an inn, but then the Nightwolf Inn has extra planar components. You have a tomb complex, but then it's got these funky puzzles and teleporters and this great gallery area in the center. And you know, in the Giants adventure, you know, it's such a large, expansive, open environment, much like the City of Brass adventure. And,
exactly.
And I think that's very Kuntzian, in that the environment kind of foregrounds itself, and you have to deal with that before you can figure out how you're going to proceed in exploring.
Or how a door might be a multiple choice option, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It might. Oh, and another thing I was going to say is that I like the fact that I'm a big fan of funhouse dungeons, which I know are hugely out of style, right? Just the idea that there is no ecology, there is no logic, there is just crazy stuff on the loose. What I love about Anthony's work is that there are a couple of adventures that nod towards the funhouse dungeon, but it's justified in game.
Right.
Because you have planar contamination or planar warping. You have various creatures that have been trapped, and the players can inadvertently release these things if they aren't, by poking around. And of course, they're encouraged to poke around, and sometimes enticed to poke around.
You too can have lunch with Yanagu.
Exactly.
Well,
yeah. Or be lunch for Inagu. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
I just
either
bought
on the
it.
menu or at the table. Yeah.
I bought it by PDF, and I'm like, oh man, I think I may live stream this. I may run this. So yeah.
I'll be right back.
Yeah. All right, Don. We'll see you in a bit.
It's funny because Gearlo Sin Crawl is one of my favorite settings that I've written. I wrote that originally in high school, and I polished and I cleaned it up, right? But it is a very cursory type of approach to the module writing. Like I think I'm more brief and succinct and like to the point in this particular supplement than I am in many of the others, right? It's a little bit more terse and a little bit but a little bit leaner.
And you also do something in there, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't it have if you will, remnants and things that your former parties left behind?
It does, yeah.
Which I love. I always love when there's like an indication that it's a living environment.
Yeah, I have several of the characters from the high school game because, of course, this setting was begun in high school, and I've just continued to flesh it out all that time. But having little homages to those characters and magic items that bear their names, it's fun. I wanted to actually circle around to something you said though about the environments, because I think that some people like to get together and okay, we're gonna drink some beer, we're gonna kill some goblins, and we're gonna get some gold. And I think that is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's absolutely great. I tend to go a little bit deep and serious with my local game, and it's a little bit less of that and a little bit more of it's a little bit more demanding of the players, I would say, than a casual night of gaming. And I think the way that if you want that type of experience, then the setting is super important for that, because if you have a very fleshed out, grounded setting that is cohesive and has an ecology and has, all that connective tissue, it allows the players to extrapolate. And when players start to extrapolate, then they can make plans, and then they get more serious, right? And so because I love the Funhouse Dungeon and I love that old school, the tables and roll this random stuff. But I do try to ground it inside of that framework of
wonderful. Yep.
Yeah, dream logic or some kind of surreal underpinning where it makes sense, but it's not necessarily what they're used to in their waking world.
Yep, that's what I love.
It just allows the players. Yeah, it allows the players to just, I think, believe it. Right, it becomes real for them.
Yeah,
and that allows them to, I think, make plans and we're going to attack this from this direction or this direction, and there isn't one right way to solve it,
So Anthony, I was reading on this one. I think this one comes with a warning label. The warning.
That's good.
What does it?
It's a
One of
seal
them
of
he
quality.
says your players better work a little differently than normal, or they're going or you know, or they're going to get like slaughtered. Basically, that's
Yeah.
what it says.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that one. Yeah,
Yeah.
that one for sure.
I thought that was
But
great.
Anthony, I think that's a great point, and for me, I tend to think it's me being grown up now. I want that kind of deeper. It needs to be immersed, and it needs to be a functional world that even if it has different rules and their demonic presence and a bunch of stuff that we don't have in the real world. I still want it to function on its own premises, so to speak. So
And
it
see,
should
Anna,
have
that's
some sort of internal logic, even if it's complicated and convoluted. It still needs to be there, so to speak, for me to make sense. But it should be fascinating enough that it has a lot of these fantastic elements, but they should make sense on its own premises. When I was 15, I didn't care about that part. If it
Yeah.
had cool stats, just kill it. But now I want more deeper stuff than that, so to speak.
And see, one of the things I love there is, and this is actually, you know how Greyhawk has its fading lands and its places of planar bleed and things like that. I've always loved stuff like that. I mean, you can think of singularities and anomalies within our physical universe, right?
Yeah.
So, and I always I actually have quoted to my players before, terrible movie, but the B movie Slave Girls from Beyond Infinity has this line where one of the
never even
characters
heard
says,
of that one. Oh,
one of the
God.
characters
Oh,
says,
terrible.
one of the characters says, I have the strangest feeling that the normal laws of time and space no longer apply here.
Yeah.
And I love that
Oh,
moment
dear.
when they're like, suddenly everything is like, wait, what? And it follows logic. It's just not necessarily, they have to think outside the box and outside of the conventional logic and
Oh,
still
dear.
follow it through.
Yep.
And I love
Sounds,
that.
yeah, sounds like a movie that should come with a warning label, though.
Oh, it definitely
in these
does have a
woke
warning
times.
Oh,
label.
like I
So,
said, there's an adventure with a warning label on it here. So
Yeah.
you know,
But they
it's
can
all
be
good.
seen as a seal of quality too, depending on from what angle you're looking at it. So yeah.
Awesome.
You
All
know,
right.
the thing that
Okay.
I was just going to say that the thing that I think drives me more than anything else is you remember when you were a young person, right? And how things felt.
yes.
Yeah.
They felt so strong, that sense of wonder, that sense of awe. And that's what I am trying to recapture, right? It's I want those adventures to feel like when you were young playing D&D for the first time. And you know, I don't know if I achieved that, but that's really kind of what I'm after.
I think you do. And I think it's a
Yeah.
distinction between that and pure nostalgia. Nostalgia is wanting to go back to the way that you were and things are, whereas this is very much bringing that to you now. It's inspiring that feeling in your present person.
Right. And
I get
do
that from your stuff.
Yeah, but to do that, you have to really have raised the bar. I mean,
Yes.
you know, Keep on the Borderlands is a fine adventure in and of itself. But you know, we've all been playing D&D for 40 years now.
Right. You have to see something new.
Yeah, not just something new, but we have higher expectations.
Yes.
And we should be able to do better than the classics, given how much time and
we've marinated in this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, we've lived our lives in this stuff.
So
you know, D&D was 7 years old or 6 years old when Keep on the Borderlands was published. You know,
but I'm happy. I've had some of my best, or at least equally good role-playing game experience the last 10 years as I had the first 10 years I played, and that is. But the interesting thing to me is different things that gets me going now. Now it's more like depth and I get like this is a setting deep, so to speak, deep lore, long-term connections and stuff like that. That's one way of doing it. The other is you can have now you can afford mini. I played like with Jay's table. We've seen all the cool miniatures and stuff. We have technology. We can bring in sketches and maps and all sorts of cool stuff that you could only dream of 40 years ago. And also play with so many awesome players, because back 40 years ago it was the kids in the neighborhood whether they really liked your play. Meaning now we can meet up with people from the rest of the worlds that are as nerdy as we are, meaning we can meet up with other people that are really like-minded, and you can play with them, which means that it's a global audience. And instead of picking the 5 best players in your neighborhood, you can pick the 5 best in the world for you to play with.
100%.
And yeah, I think all of these things combined makes for equally awesome experiences now, even if we played several thousand sessions, each of us, over 40 years. It's still some of the best sessions of it. I still think that the best session level ever have is not, haven't played that one yet. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think the past 10 years have been phenomenally better than high school ever was, of course.
Yeah.
And
and also, Anthony, I think you're on the same track as myself and Alan and Carlos Lysing and all the other people who think OSR, old school, we've never really left it, and we don't need to. And we have all these people that are starting to, like with Shadow Dark out and Castles and Crusades and all, they're all coming back, right? It's all it's come circle. So like I think with that, you know, and that using that as our framework, we can do whatever we want, you know, and that's the fun part of it. You know,
for me, it's weirdly enough, I have 1 foot in old school, that where I came from, so to speak, and 1 foot in something that is not. I'm using a lot of. I'm tweaking 5e for my own game, so to speak, a house rule version. But it's not because I love 5e much. It's simply I realize now which part I want simplified and which parts I want complicated. I want simple rules with depth. And it's simply because I want to have maximum compatibility, so to speak. So I realized that what the heck, just base it on that, and I can share my stuff easier and import and export stuff with it. But I'm still having, I have a lot of the old school flavor of things, meaning I play in Greyhawk, so I want the Greyhawk feel, and I want very deeply my rules and the play deeply set in the setting, so to speak, with a lot of flavors of it. But I don't necessarily want to bog down combat with a whole bunch of rules and stuff like that. That's something in 3rd edition I didn't like. But there are some parts of the mechanics that are flavorful that I do like, so to speak. So in that sense, I try to simplify and still keep a lot of the depth of it. And it's hard, but I'm starting now to figure out where I want to go, so to speak. And that has taken me 10 years of figuring out where I want. And I did 10 years of Pathfinder. So roughly 20 years of it was like 10, 15 years of almost 20 years of old school, kind of up until 1, 2 edition. And then another 10 years or a little bit of almost 20 years of 3rd edition Pathfinder, and now a few years of 5e that I'm just using as a base to go from, so to speak. So
I think that's great, because I would never say somebody's wrong for playing 5th edition, for example.
Agreed.
I think that you play the system that you want to play, and that best conveys the experience that you want to have. And if you want to have epic fantasy where you are the hero and man, it's hard to kill you, then you know, maybe 5th edition is what you want to do. I think the most important thing is that the system that you use should be transparent. You should know it so well that it becomes invisible, right? It is the matrix in which the adventure happens. And I just happen to be fluent in AD&D. So there's no real reason for me to use a different system. And on top of that, I think that the survival horror nature of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, the brutality of that system, supports the kind of experience that I want to have at the table. And that's
you know, Anthony, if I may, that reminds me of something that I wanted to ask you about, or rather have you talk about, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
My favorite of your adventures so far, and this is not, and it's tough. It's like, you know, being confronted with a fabulous feast and having to pick your favorite dish. But this one just has the spice that appeals to me. Okay, that would be Dream House of the Nether Prince. Which features
to pick that one.
One of my favorite demon lords, man.
Orcus.
Yes, and I was wondering if you would talk a little bit about the inspiration for that adventure, and also, I want to thank you because, like, by comparison, something like that last Bloodstone Pass adventure is shown up for being not, not up to snuff, man.
We're up to level 100. That one you're talking about, Les?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas I've got to say that Dreamhouse of the Nether Prince this is my Orcus. This is the way that I would envision.
Cool.
Well, I'm so glad that I did not disappoint you. So right, the inspiration for this, I needed a capstone for the esoteric Order of the Twilight Princess campaign that I was running, and Orcus was sort of the main bad guy, and so as with all of the adventures that I've put out, they're all written for play here with my local group, right? That's why I'm writing them, is so that I can use them to play with these guys, and having them put out for everybody else to glean what they can from, that's secondary, right? And so I wanted to do demons in this very just chaotic brutality, just wild and unsightly and awful. I wanted it to be awful, and I wanted Orcus to not be trying to control that, but instead just like stoking the fire, right? And his strength is in capitalizing on Orcus, on chaos, right? His strength is capitalizing on that chaos and allowing it to foment, and just thereby creating what's essentially a war zone inside of the keep, so that it's just so dangerous because of chaos itself, right?
And that's one of, I was going to say too, one of the things I love that you set up is that there are these different encounters, and if characters just walk into a room and decide to pick a fight, that's not good, man. I like the fact that they can go ahead and maybe they can strike a deal with somebody. That might not be the best thing possible, but you can get information, or they can use, if they're sufficiently high level, they can use their spells in intelligent ways, or use their magic items in intelligent ways. And I love the way that that forces the players to start thinking tactically and strategically, rather than just, hey, let's rush in and kill a bunch of demons.
Yeah.
Which is just, I mean, let's face it, you're on their turf, and these are demons, for Pete's sake. So I just love the way that it captures that. I mean, this and Fabled City of Brass are probably my two favorites. So just to get that out there.
I wanted to write dialogue as well for Orcus.
Oh.
Yeah.
And for Demogorgon, and which I did, right? I wrote dialogue for both of them, which, if you want to, you can read it verbatim and whatever. But writing dialogue for characters like that is very intimidating. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to try to write dialogue for these characters that everybody knows and loves. And so I set out to write that dialogue because it would help clarify for me. It gives me an example of like, okay, this is how I'm going to play these monsters, these characters.
The personality. Yeah.
And just trying to make them embody, what I think they should. It's funny because Dreamhouse of the Nether Prince is like the exact opposite of what I'm actually working on right now. I'm working on the 9 Hells, inspired by Ed Greenwood's Dragon articles, which I bow down to these articles because they were such an inspiration for the Hells.
Ed's the man.
Yeah.
Ed's the man.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to say something else that's great about what you do is that I love the fact that you give that list of kind of your resources, what you're referring to, your references.
So you want to learn AD&D there, Les?
Yeah, exactly. I love that.
Here are links: handling character death, teaching old dogs old tricks, rules over rulings, consistency in DMing. It goes on and on. So, and this is, you guys can all look at this for free and just come on. He's got his DM screen. Let's just click on it and see what we got here. There you go. Look at that. DM screen is up for how Anthony handles things. And if you got one with the filler spots, you know, he's sharing this with you. Oh, look, you got the anti-paladin picture.
Yes, I do.
Good, got you down. Oh, I love anti-paladins are my favorite, as everyone should
Yeah.
know, right, Anna?
Mhm.
That is great. Yeah, so it sounds like you, myself, Alan, and Carlos all come from the same world of we revere the dragons in that glory age. I mean, the Len Kafka articles, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I love the Archer. I love the Deathmaster. We're going to talk about Deathmaster a little bit later on. Oh, wow, that's fantastic. But you got some great stuff on this page, which will running your first AD&D campaign. So let me, and you got some, look, there's your wonderful Rust Monster. And
That's a monster of an article right there.
Yeah, that is, but the great thing is that you have suggestions and ideas and techniques for assisting people, which is wonderful and very selfless. So,
and they work because among the folks who've participated in Anthony's community and interacted on the blog include folks who have been, previously diehard BX players or 5e players or whatever, and they wanted to really try 1e, and they were able to do that largely through the tutelage that Anthony has provided.
I'm kind of amazed that actually worked.
It was, yeah.
There and that's the great thing is there's a medium for bringing that forward. For us, it's this show, right? We talk about how to do rules, movement, combat, all that. For Anthony, it's his site, and now you know about it. Please go there and utilize it. If Alan's recommending it and Les is recommending it, then it's gold, right? So just note from
the AD&D system is arguably a convoluted hot mess of all kinds of crazy stuff, and it's so hard to grok, right?
Yeah.
It's just so daunting. You've got these massive number of books and all this, and some of the most key pieces of information that help you turn that light bulb on and go, oh, this is how it works, are hidden away in modules, right? Like S4 or whatever.
And it doesn't have a system really. It's a bunch of subsystems that they work in their own little convoluted way. So it's
it has so many little tiny moving parts that I think the average person is tempted to just like discard out of hand without even really thinking about it. Just that's I don't understand that. Throw it away.
Yeah.
And what I wanted was I just wanted to provide like a window into how this game basically saved my life as a very young person, and I just wanted to preserve this system so that I don't expect, new people in the droves to come in and play by the book like I do, but to even be able to, preserve the system in such a way that a new person can come in, read about it, understand how it works, and then make a decision like, oh, well, why not try, making ink the old-fashioned way like they still do in Japan.
Why not try it? But I don't want to use this rule. I'm not going to use weapon speed factor. I'm not going to use versus armor class.
Of course.
And that's the great thing.
And one of the things I love, speaking about the a la carte approach, and I was going to say this, is that one of the things I love about Anthony's products is that they acknowledge, for example, the influence of bits of Manual of the Planes or Roger Moore's Astral Plane article. I love the fact that you're simultaneously building on these things, but acknowledging and referring the reader, acknowledging the influence and referring the reader back to these sources, so that people can go ahead and look back on these materials and perhaps incorporate more of that, less of that, tweak it, add spice to flavor, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that's again,
awesome.
Anthony, it's just great of you to do that, because a lot of times I think people just throw stuff in. They don't acknowledge those sources and those influences. And people are left hanging. Okay, so what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah, agreed. It's not just mastering AD&D as a system and set of subsystems, but the corpus of what's available from Dragon and
people built
from
those
the rest
roads,
of the books
right?
and everything.
Yeah,
exactly.
We're driving around on these roads.
That's it.
Somebody built them.
We pay homage to them every week here, because go to it. Like, we're gonna go to a Dragon 76 tonight afterwards. With
awesome.
Yeah,
that's a great article.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why people have asked me periodically with my articles why I have the annotations at the end with the DM, where I have all the references
all the time, Les. It's
and
great.
my point is, it's the shoulders of giants idea. Okay.
Yep.
Here
100%.
are some sources you can go back to, and if you don't like my take or you want to tweak something in my take, here's some additional material that you can dig through and find inspiration in.
So,
it's there. The body of work is there. It's like what Raymond Chandler, that anecdote about Raymond Chandler, where someone said, "What do you think of what Hollywood did to your books?" And he said, "They didn't do anything. My books are right there on the shelf behind me."
Yeah, exactly.
So,
so let's get some questions in from the audience while we still have Anthony. Number one, Greg Justinius said you just recently talked to him via email. Thank you on the Throne of the Gods discussion. So he just wanted to thank you in chat. All right.
Thank you so much. You're welcome.
Secondly, Rex Fellis asked a question. Let me scroll back here because it was a little long. What is your process for designing an adventure? What is your main advice for other adventure writers? What to do, what to avoid?
Right. So that's a really complicated topic, of course. I did write a couple. I wrote a couple blog posts on how to design adventures, which you can find on the blog.
Okay.
I would say it's really linked to the system that you're using. My benchmark is like, how much experience do I want this adventure to give the party? So I calculate out a gold amount. That's the budget, right, for the treasure. And then my most basic principle is, how hard is it for the monsters to hit the characters, and how hard is it for the characters to hit the monsters? That is the fundamental, because when all of the puzzles break down and all the bad decisions happen, right, you wind up in a melee. And at that point, shit can go sideways if you haven't thought about probabilities, right? And so, my go-to example is Dungeon Master. For a novice Dungeon Master thinks, well, what I'll do is I'll just give the goblin plate mail, right? And then that's it. Well, what you don't realize is that by giving the goblin plate mail, you've almost ensured that the combat is going to go on for 10 rounds, and the players will never hit him, and you have this problem now. So you start out with assessing probabilities for a bunch of stuff.
No, you're
there's a great website called Any Dice that you should use for all your design work, because you can type in any combination of dice and it will show you the probabilities of results.
So I'm typing in the chat because that's funny, because the ever mysterious Tim once put invisible skeletons and plate mail against us. I was thinking exactly. It's like, oh, that fight went on forever.
Yeah, it's anydice.com. It's a great site. So I use it a lot when I tweak my house rules. It's fantastic. Yep.
Very cool. So do we all, Alan, do you agree? I know Greg Justinius said that the cream of the crop, which you haven't even discussed yet, is this Fabled City of Brass. Is that where? Because I know you've mentioned it multiple times. So, Alan, what are your thoughts?
Oh, they're all great adventures. I think it just depends on what you're wanting to deploy into your campaign. City of Brass and Dream House of the Nether Prince are both high level adventures that could be culminating capstones, as they at least Dreamhouse was in Anthony's game.
Okay.
For a campaign, no problem. But if your characters aren't 10th level, it you don't want to go yet.
Okay.
It's not going to be fun.
Yeah, that's the other thing I was going to say. The reason that Fable City of Brass was my other pick, there are so few really good high-level AD&D adventures.
That's true. That is definitely true.
These are awesome.
Yeah.
I love the very kind of Burton translation of the 1001 Nights of the Arabian Nights feel that this version of the City of Brass captures. It's yes, it's a thing of beauty.
Thank you so much. The thing about high-level adventures is that
what's up, Tim?
In 2014, when I got back into playing, I started to suss out what the sentiments were online and stuff, and people really talked a lot of crap about high-level characters, and your characters should never be over 10th level, because if they are, then you're clearly not having fun, and D&D is broken after 10th level and whatever. And I didn't buy that. I thought it was
cool. No,
I thought it was crap. It's a crap argument. You just don't understand the mechanics, right? I think AD&D offers you the ability to have very high level characters that are still fundamentally fragile. And it's all about knowing how to attack the character sheet from many different vectors. And high level adventures should not be about limiting the characters and what they can do so much. I tend to pick one or two things that I'm going to punch the character on at high level, oh, you can't rest very often or whatever, much like Isle of the Ape, right? But aside from these few annoyances, otherwise your whole arsenal is at your disposal. And the way you handle it is just like an onslaught that never, ever stops. Just drain their resources and force them to use all the magic items, and force them to think about what they're doing before they charge in, right? Because they start to realize, oh crap, I lost this and this and this in the last half hour of the game, so I better think twice now.
Anna, what does that Greenwood say every time we run a game for him?
Well, he enjoys it, but I forgot exactly what the saying.
I used every single spell.
Oh yes,
I drained down to the.
And you gave him. You normally you don't give any rest.
No rest. No, screw that. The resting's for. I'm not going to say it on stream. It begins with P. Resting's for. You don't need that.
Yeah, but you gave him an exception once. So,
well, well, as a Gary Con the year before last, I said never again, Ed. So, Jackknife says, I think I said that it's spelled differently. Had you considered fleshing out Palace Vrl more completely? Also, are you contemplating another project currently? I think the answer was yes on that.
Fleshing out what?
It says VU project VURLE. VULRE. I don't know.
Oh,
Palace,
okay.
Palace Vrl. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So Palace Vulre was No, it's okay. Palace Vulre is a elven palace that was sunk under volcanic ash in the mountains, in the Amhart Mountains.
Okay.
And it was a side adventure that I wrote for my group here locally. I don't have any plans to flesh that out. It is what it is at the moment. What I'm working on right now, though, is the Nine Hells.
Cool.
I've completed Avernus and Stygia, and I'm working on Minoris right now. So I don't know if I'll finish all 9, but it's been fun so far.
That's awesome. I got another question from Rex Fellis again. Why don't you? I'm going to shrink it down a bit here. Adjustments to 1E. Do you have any special custom rules? And if you want to share one or two of them. I use group initiative, for example. That's one of mine. I use group initiative. So.
Yeah, I mean, my initiative resolution definitely is not perfectly by the book, but I think it might be one of the
Ultimate rules.
truest attempts to play it by the book.
Okay.
It is just a D6 and it is group initiative. So it's not individual initiative, but I do individual surprise rolls. The only custom rules I run with right now are sanity that I made for the Silver Castle campaign.
Okay.
And I use Milan's undead variant for level drain, so that it's not quite so punishing.
Yeah. White and race at draining full levels early on is really bad.
Yeah.
I agree with
And
you.
then I have just a handful of weapon related rules and class related rules. Like the monk is unplayable as written in the player's handbook. That's my opinion.
What about the Dragon 53 monk?
I have to admit I'm not super familiar with that.
Okay, I was just curious. Okay.
But yeah, basically I give the monk D6 for hit dice, and I let them use con and strength and dex adjustments, and that solves the bulk of the problems with the monk class.
Cool.
Otherwise, by the book, pretty much.
All right, so we got like 10 minutes here. Les, shoot a question because I know you're dying.
Okay, Anthony, we've discussed gaming influences, and I would also assume that your background in writing video games has helped considerably too. But I'm just curious, what sort of literary or filmic influences, cinematic influences, would you cite?
Oh wow!
And the reason I mention that is that there's a particular spell in one of your games, an illusionist spell that kind of reminded me of. I think it's transform into legend or something like that. Become legend.
Oh yeah, become legend.
Which reminded me of Merlin near the end of Excalibur.
Right.
That's the reason
when he's in the dreams, when he's in everyone's dreams instead.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
You know, I could probably list an awful lot. I mean, obviously Lovecraft, and there's just it's one of those things where I think some of the best creative minds they gather from all these different sources and they just throw it into a compost pile, and you almost lose track, right? And what comes out of that compost is sort of an aroma. It's like it's like a special brand of fermentation that that is a blend of all these things, and hopefully, I guess, no one element comes out too strong.
Oh yeah. I was meaning just personal favorite stuff that you were like rereading as well.
I mean,
because
funny enough,
my favorite book before too.
If you want to know my favorite book of all time, it's not even fantasy. It's Tim O'Brien, The Things They Carried.
Great book.
Which is a Vietnam, book. But when you read a book like that, there's so many things that you can take away.
Oh yeah.
That will actually help you run a D&D game. The Things They Carried is about truth, and storytelling
and guilt and survival.
Yeah, I mean it's just tremendous. I mean there are these moments of horror and awe and some of the moments that you wish you could have in a D&D game, right? Where these moments of clarity and lemon tree, right?
Yeah. Definitely.
So
I think that's an important point too, is that we get locked into the gaming industry tends to cannibalize itself.
Yeah.
And recycle its tropes and its iconography endlessly. And I think that you raise a great point there.
It's like the movie industry in that sense.
Yeah,
something works, then make versions of it, so to speak.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing is that like you can draw from so many find inspiration in so many different sources, be it reading history or reading, for lack of a better term, literary fiction, even though I think that term doesn't function the way that people think it does. To the weirder outliers within fantasy or genre fiction, to crime fiction, anything else. I mean, yeah, I think that's a great answer. And by the way, yeah, that O'Brien novel, ooh, great choice, man.
Alan, you got a question?
Nothing specifically off the top of my head.
I mean, you know Anthony better than
I talk all the
so,
time,
yeah. Okay.
I guess, on some level.
Okay.
I'm definitely glad to hear that you've already covered Stygia. That was one of the ones I was hoping you would definitely get to. So that's good to hear.
I'll tell you that I wanted to write that one because I just love Arion being this, you know, he's kind of just this playboy that lets his consort take care of stuff and doesn't have really all that much ambition, but resents deeply the way that all the other archdevils look down on him. And so
you have a release date for those? Justinius asks.
I don't right now. I have a few of them in the can already, but I'm kind of letting them sit because as I move on to different layers of the Hells, I want to be able to dip back in and make connections and hook things together and have adventures that cross over. And but I want to make it clear that like this project is really about magnifying the articles that Ed Greenwood wrote nice. in those 3 issues of Dragon Magazine, right? So it's really about taking all of the material that he so awesomely put down and adding a level of crunch to it, and so that it becomes a little bit more playable, right? Because the problem I have with the articles is though, for play purposes, right, is that although they are evocative and awesome and detailed and you have all this stuff going on, it's hard to grok in a game. It's buried in text. And I wanted to have tables and hex crawl rules and an economy and sort of like, you know, pull these personalities out and give them goals and motivations and grudges and involve the players in that, so that when they run into a devil or a duke, you know, I think the Hells are very different from the Abyss, right? The Abyss wants to eat you and the Hells wants to use you. Okay. So you are much less likely to be destroyed outright in the Hells, but you're likely to be manipulated and pulled into intrigues and thrown against adversaries and what have you. So
Anthony, I got
imagine trying to make a faction map of the 9 Hells, you know.
That'd be cool. So Anthony, I got an idea. I'll have you back sometime in the near future with Ed.
Okay.
With Ed on. How's that?
That'd be great. I would love that.
Okay. We can do that.
Yeah,
we can always do that. Good. Ed'll come on anytime. I was like, hey, as long as Ed's free, he'll come on. Good. So
yeah, sounds like a plan.
Yes. He also gives good back rubs too, but we won't go into
that. I'm a little far.
Yes, Gary Con, we all know. Anna, you have a question?
Family show, Jay. Family show.
Well, it's it.
Yeah, when I look at the products, meaning me being a cartographer, so I immediately zeroed in on the Castle of the Silver Prince maps, and you have talks about that is the world of Dumim and comes with a campaign setting of maps and stuff. So cool. What have the role of maps in your publishing and stuff, meaning how deeply have you done it, have you got into it, or yeah?
I think one of the reasons I respect you so much is you understand the importance of a good map.
Oh, thank you.
I think that there's really nothing more critical to begin a campaign with than a map. Right, because this grounds the players in their start point. It shows them possibilities where they can go. And so, yeah, I do care about the maps. I've used Incarnate. I have a paid subscription to Incarnate. The Castle of the Silver Prince, however, I did in Photoshop where I set a grid and I do a scale
really cool,
of
sketch there.
yeah,
on
32,
one of
32 pixels equals 5 feet. So it should make it easy if you run a tabletop with Map Tool, for example.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean,
Anthony,
I love
got
maps.
a blast from the past for you. If you remember that you posted on YouTube back in the day when you were mapping out the fabled city of Brass.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, you were playing some Blue Oyster Cult and Buck
I
Dharma.
was.
And I'm gonna go ahead and post
Cities
that
on
link 'cause that's
Flame with
cool.
rock and roll.
Yep.
Which is very appropriate to the city of Brass.
Indeed.
Cool. So you've worked with done things from Dungeon maps to setting maps, so to speak, and dabbled in all sorts of it. That's awesome. Yeah.
It's a really cool city map, Anna.
I'm nowhere near the artist that
No,
Anna
but
is,
you've done, meaning I've done 10% of the other stuff you've done. So you've done way more than 10% of what I've done in mapping, it sounds like. So this is really cool. Yeah. Thank you.
So I got one. I know we're getting on time for Anthony. So here's our last question: Have you run domain games at all, where your players build castles, ruling baronies, engaging in faction play, or the like? Yeah, has it gotten to that point, or is it where it's political?
So sort of, a little bit, right? As they have approached level title, like I do have. One character built a temple because his character, she's like 17th level cleric, right? And so she has a temple, and they built a keep together. And yeah, there is some sense of taxation and stuff like that. I wouldn't say that I have gone hardcore down the road of. We did run a chainmail war. We used chainmail rules to determine one of the wars that broke out. But the bulk of the players would prefer to be off in the dungeon, right? And so they tend to let their hirelings run the castle, and then we do some downtime threads and some bookkeeping, record keeping, accounting, and we make it as streamlined as possible, and then let them carry on, as it were.
Okay. So, Anthony, I know we're at your hour. So, what would you like to say in closing for thank you for coming on here? We really appreciate it, and definitely have.
Oh no, thank you. I mean, I really don't have anything to say. I guess I'm a terrible self-marketer. So thanks for having me, and I hope you guys have a wonderful next hour. So
I appreciate that. And once again, the Blue Bard, here's the site. It can get everything is downloadable off this site and PDF. You can go to Lulu for actual purchase of a hardback or softback. And also, there's a lot of great advice on here. Please utilize it and reach out. And Anthony, it sounds like from Justinius, you answer questions that are sent to you via email, which is great. So
thank you so much. You guys have a nice night.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for your time. All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Talk to you later, Anthony.
So that was awesome. I knew we had him for an hour, so we tried to make the most out of that.
That was great.
That was wonderful. But we got a little, what are we gonna do next hour? Well, Alan and I are like, you know what? It's time to do the Necromancer smash up here the second hour. Please note we got 2 giveaways tonight. We're gonna do 2 classic D&D reprints because of the really massive hype train we had. So you'll get your choice of a wonderful assortment. This is like 1/10 of the pile, believe it or not. The pile would kill me if it fell over. Just so you know. Thank you, Patrick. Adventure Begins, Monster Manual 2, Fiend Folio, Marklands, Treasures, Scarlet Brotherhood. These are all in reprint, so you gotta have your choice. Plus a whole bunch of adventures and modules. So stay tight with here, and let's roll on this next part of the discussion as we go to the dark arts. And I guess, where do we start, Alan? I know that we were talking, and time frame wise, I think that Yeah, it's older. So the White Dwarf magazine is older than Len's Deathmaster. So
It is. Yeah, yeah.
so Alan and I were talking once and realized we both have necromancers. We both created it from scratch and are pretty similar, but there are some differences. So let's start with this. What made you see the need in old school 1E play for that class to exist? What were your thoughts, Alan? And then we'll give everyone else's thoughts, because I know what mine were. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think necromancers are sort of an interesting foe. They're sort of part of that classic tradition, that comes from folklore and such, and they push the buttons I like as a player and as a dungeon master, in the sense of, you start walking down the path of making deals you shouldn't make, and
That's true.
there's there's consequences to selling your soul, or whatever the case may be. So I was really trying to put together a class that would be a good representation of sort of all of that folkloric set of elements for play. And it was, while I did create the class, it was directly in response to Len's class, because while I really enjoyed the Deathmaster when he published it in Dragon 76, I felt like it didn't quite go far enough, and it didn't.
It was specialized. It was too specialized for use as a player character, I think.
Well,
right?
and it was, but even as if you kind of hand wave that and say, sure, it's an NPC, you can do anything you want with an NPC class. It didn't quite capture the feel and the scope of kind of power I wanted a necromancer to have. So
True.
In some of my tweaks to it, I created new spells. I leveraged certainly quite a bit of the stuff that Len did in the class, and then built some on top of that. I brought in some of the material from Polyhedron magazine from John Pickens for his Dominion spells and his Specialist Mage spells. I like the stuff Ed did in Lords of Darkness for the new spells, in particular in there. And I tried to pull all that together and then add things to it to sort of help the class do what I wanted it to do. So
it's like Polyhedron 27 and 28 where you drew from those two.
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
So
yeah. So John Pickens did a series of articles in Polyhedron, maybe starting in issue 19 or something like that, where he was creating and adding new spells to the game for classes that had fewer spells. So he did new cleric spells, new illusionist spells, etc. And then he was also creating new classes and providing spells for those along the way too.
So for me, and then we'll get Les and Anna involved in this, and this is a funny story. I started seeing all these spells for necromancers in Dragon magazine, right? So everyone knows Necromancer's Black Book here. So they're all photocopied going back to those days. Corpse Link, Skeletal Hands, Blast Bones, Blood Glass. They're all Insatiable Thirst. That's in Tome of Magic. But there's a lot of them in there that were like, I never saw them anywhere else. Ghastly Hands, Whip of Pain, Sinuous Horrors. And I never thought until 2 days ago, when you brought this up, they must have gone somewhere instead of in Dragon, and they're all in this book, which I never had owned ever, Alan. I never owned the original first edition Lords of Darkness book. I had the later, never. And I'm looking in here.
It's awesome.
Yeah, and so I'm like going in the back here, and I'm like, holy shit, most of them are in here.
It's like the only of the Book of Lairs series that I felt had any teeth in
Corpse Light, Undead Mount.
Yeah.
They're in here. Invisibility Undead. I was just shocked. Look, Death's Door's even in here that we use as That's a big spell for us, for putting people down who are in the negatives. We use that but it's in this book. I was like, oh my gosh, I really missed something.
And there's several edition. There's like a second edition and a third, and stuff. So
I have the third edition book, the one that there's a
Mhm.
white, there's there's a Champions of Ruin and Lord or whatever. There's two of them. There's one for good guys and one for the bad guys. But I never knew that there was this old first edition book that like Ed had started, and I was like, oh my gosh, wow, I really missed the boat. And then Curtis said, because he's a Forgotten Realms guy, so so I have something to talk about with Ed again. And I just wanted to point that out, Alan. Thank you for something I completely missed after 40 years was this book. So very early. Is there a 5th edition version? No. I highly doubt there's 5th edition versions of any of this. No.
Several of the spells are, and if not, then I'll publish them because I've translated them, a lot of these spells, into my campaign. So I have them in a 5-ish version, so to speak, for my games. That there's some additional, we can get to that later, so to speak. So I have some additional bells and whistles on my magic system on top of the 5e, but if you don't need to know as a player at the beginning just to cast it, but if you want to go deep, there is more bells and whistles to it. Then there's some hidden aspects of the game, of the magic system, that as if you want to play high level player and you want to go deep into it and figure out why your magic works better sometimes and doesn't work at all in other times, then it might be good to know these things. But if you just want to play and cast spells, it's like 5e or like any D&D. Yeah.
So this article predates the Deathmaster. This is 82.
Mm-hmm.
So
is this a
White
PC
Dwarf
class, or is it just an NPC
class? No, it's
class?
a PC class. I'm almost positive.
Yeah.
It says character class. It's false for. There was a big controversy in White Dwarf at the time, that raged for several issues about the morality of having this particular class as a player class.
I did not know that, Les. Wow. I did not know that.
White Dwarf was definitely a little edgier than what TSR was doing in many ways back in the day. And Lou Pulsifer is a top-notch designer,
absolutely,
in general.
But he brought it on the end of these guys are evil, because look, he also does the wisdom is not more than 12. Right, so I have them with high wisdom because they got a clerical aspect to them a little bit, and they got to have a certain. I have intelligence and wisdom as their prime requisites. He has it not more than 12, so he's putting them as they're evildoers, which is I understand that. But so this class came out, and there's spells here, and a decent amount. Now, for me, that's not enough spells. It's good as a start, but that was always my problem. And I was always finding these spells and dragons. I'm like, oh my God, there's more. And then when 2nd edition Player's Handbook came out, they had all this. They had the Necromantic Sphere, right? And that's when I said I can create a really good 1st edition class with these spells, because they had Enervation and Contagion and Energy. Energy Drain came out a little bit earlier, but they had spells, and Spectral Hand was one of the best ones from that. And I was able to create it then. So. Alan, do you remember when you created yours? You created it back in the 80s or 90s, and then compile it and move on.
Yeah, I did it in the. I did it as part of my college campaign because one of the recurring NPCs was a necromancer, so it was in the
90s,
late 80s,
early 90s, and that's 90s, the same with me. Yeah. It's my second custom class. I created a bounty hunter first, and I didn't even know that someone else had published one too. And same thing with this. I knew there was a Deathmaster, but I didn't know anyone had published a Necromancer. So ours are a little different, which is fine. But we get the same. You get the same gist on it. You created a custom experience table, right? And look, because I used I said I used the spell generation and a table of illusionists, because I think they're a subclass of mage. So I'm going to use the same thing. I'll use Illusionist 1, because they don't get as many high-level spells as you go up. It's like they're a little bit behind. So I kind of like that. But
and like for mine, I definitely, for some of my classes, I use the XP table as a way to really
punish,
sort of slow down.
Yep. Smart move.
Really powerful classes, so that they're there aren't too many 20th level necromancers.
You can see that right here, 375 to 800,000, right there. You can see that. I mean, that's almost like Druid. double, double, double for druids to get up to those super high levels. They got real fast, but then boom, doubled up there. So Les, Anna, what are your either of you use have a class or have what are your thoughts on where you're going with necromancy?
Since
Necromancy. Go on.
please.
No, go on.
Oh, okay. Well, so since I don't have any classes, I don't have a necromancy class, but I definitely have necromancy necromancers in my campaign. They're kind of a wizard or someone who's spellcasting that specializes in or is really good at using necrotic spells or necromancy. And the school of necromancy is still very much you can specialize in it. And to me, there's two ways you can look at necromancy spells. One is the school of necromancy. I mean, if you're an arcane spellcaster, you can say, well, I want to be especially good at casting necromancy spells, that school, and you can get better at that, meaning you can cast them better and more powerful and so on and so forth. But there's also old magic that I have in my campaign uses a strain, meaning that's what type of energy they're using. And there are certain necrotic is one energy, meaning one magic source of energy. You can spells that draw energy from the lower or negative energy plane. They are the necrotic. They suck out life force one way or the other, so to speak. So most necromancy spells are that way. Not all of them. There are other spells in the necromancy school that doesn't do it, and there are also spells outside the necros, but the overlap is like 80-90%, so to speak. So most spells in the necromancy school, they draw necrotic energy, which means that they are this necrotic strain. So they can be, so that means that they don't work in maybe the upper planes in outer and some demi-planes and stuff like that. So that's why I classify them what type of energy they're using too. So because that make them stronger or weaker sometimes. So, and you can also as a spellcaster specialize in using that energy only and skip the schools too if you like to, like shadow magic, for instance. There's no specific school for shadow magic, but you can still specialize in it. So that's the other. So those are the two kind of ways
or create
of looking.
A whole class on shadow magic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I have them too. So I've created another spell school, and that's clemency. That's the opposite of necromancy. So that was something that they played around with Wizard of the Coast and TSR several times. I've talked to some of the designers, say, but because they wanted healing spells to have its own school. So I did that, so to speak. So they have the clemency is basically the opposite, spells that use the positive energy plane for its magic, so to speak. So yeah, and also then there's where do you get your spells from? Meaning an arcane caster is simply talent. You research or you use shared talent and you figure it out and then you do it. And then primal, then you use the forces of nature to do it. And then divine, you get some powerful being, you pray to them or are loyal to them, and they bestow the magic to you, so to speak, so like clerics and stuff. And necromancy it's kind of equally, it has the most powerful when it comes to divine, meaning the most powerful necromancy magic is probably the divine type. If you have a demon lord or an evil god or whatever, it can probably give you the most powerful. An arcane, then you're a little bit limited, so to speak. There are probably a few things that are really hard to figure out on your own. So I would say the most powerful arcane or most powerful necromancy casters that can do necromantic spells are probably they probably have some sort of allegiance to a demon lord or devil or something like that. But arcane spellcasters can be almost as powerful. It's just that divine can cast basically anything, meaning the gods can give you any spell they have the power to cast, so to speak. They can bestow it on you. So technically divine magic can be the most powerful, but in this sense it's probably even more so than a lot of other spells. So there are some in my game, there are some really powerful necromancers that are pure arcane casters, but there are on the other hand, there are probably a few more high level clerics and stuff that are maybe even more deep into the necrotic. And some of them probably have both, meaning they might be sneaky and they take some magic from their evil overlord, but they might figure out to do some anyway, so to speak. So you can mix and match, and meaning if you're treachery evil, you do it the way you you can find it, so to speak. You might not want to tell everything to the demon lord you worship. Right. So
and I do agree that
yeah.
there is a divine crossover, because if you look in the Eyes the Evil reference,
Yeah.
they actually
Yeah.
put necromancer spells into their
Oh yeah.
spell list.
Yep.
I see them as prayed for versions of arcane. But
exactly. I have the same. Yeah.
I see necromancy as the lost dark arts that you should not, that are lost for a reason. I'm not sure what your thoughts are now. That it is, spellcasters that have gone the wrong path, and hey, we don't want. That's why they're outlawed in the College of Magic in Greyhawk for me.
Oh yeah.
So
the same here in most good countries. Yeah.
So Les, that's okay. No, it's cool. It's a great discussion. What are your thoughts, Les? I don't want to keep.
Well, let me submit the minority report here.
Okay.
My take on necromancy as a school of magic kind of derives from what necromancy became in our world. Okay. By the time you reach the medieval and Renaissance periods, it has become a separate area of magical inquiry. Right, you have not works like the Picatrix and the Thesaurus Necromancia, and another work known as Forbidden Rites. And these all exist in translation. They were essentially works of studying. Many of them are just mixtures of different spells, but they include ways to conjure the dead, uses for the parts of dead people, etc. But when you go back further and you look at the etymology of necromancy itself, right? Manteia is derived from the Greek meaning an oracle or divination. Or mantis, someone who is touched by the divine. And then necros, of course, means like a corpse, right? A body, a dead thing.
Yep.
So what you had then, and you see this in Greek literature, you see this throughout the classical world, the idea that like Circe, right, would help Odysseus speak to the shades of the dead, like descend into the cave and speak to the shades of his dead friends.
Okay.
So to me, it's kind of the opposite process, where at some point it was a school of arcane magic, right? But it was associated with the divine, which is why in one of my articles in the Oath Journal, you have judgment. When capital judgment is passed on someone, there are two figures involved. There is a druid and there is a necromancer, right?
Okay.
Because I can see where, and I think you can see where, as these lawful, more, how can I put it? These things that are less concerned with speaking to your dead ancestors and focus more on the direct inspiration of your god come into being, you have a shift away from that, right? And that becomes verboten. Like tampering with the dead, why would you need to ask the dead questions? Really, our gods can answer our questions.
Yeah.
We can do these things. So that becomes kind of a suppressed form of knowledge and becomes its own separate school of studying.
It's kind of funny. I definitely say that Speak with Dead is one of the few necromancy spells that doesn't use necrotic strain, because that's concordant, because it's not evil to talk to them, or it doesn't take from the negative energy planes. It's more like that is borderline divination, so to speak. So that's a spell that I can have a crossover. I haven't placed it in. It's still in the school of necromancy, but it doesn't use the necrotic strain, so it doesn't come with an evil taint, for instance, that a lot of others do. So
interesting.
So you will not spell of evil if you cast it. So
Razzmatazz actually raises another valid kind of point here, which is who needs gods when I can command death? Which is that idea that in a lot of the D&D cosmology, you have the idea, whether it's Planescape, whether it's Ouija's guiding things, you have an afterlife that souls go to, right? And these things mess with that. And if they don't mess with that, they certainly mess with the natural processes of life and death. The idea that your body becomes something that is consumed. Life out of death comes life, out of life comes death. You're breaking that cycle. Which is one of the reasons why in my Oath Journal article about those those scarecrows that are not quite dead. That I wrote. The idea is that if someone has stolen or from the tribe, or this is in ancient Flan times, if someone stole from the tribe or violated a member of the community or something like that, they're brought before the druid, and if the druid turns his back on them, they are brought to the necromancer and basically dosed with a paralytic. The necromancer then soul jars their spirit, and their body is dunked in a tar pit or a marsh, a bog, for a certain amount of time, then withdrawn, and their soul is restored. A permanent spell is cast on the body so that it won't dissolve, and they're basically propped up to scare off the idea that you now have an insane soul trapped in this scarecrow.
That's really
wards off horrible things from the tribes wherever they planted things. Or things like that. And in what that does is it restores balance. You put the tribe's life in the collective life of the tribe in danger. Now you will contribute to and protect the collective life of the tribe.
And it's kind of like what Jason Zavoda did in one of his giant stories. There was a giant who was supposed to be on guard duty and protecting the steading from being invaded, and he failed in his duty. He was killed by the adventurers when they invaded. And then he got set up as a permanent watch spirit.
Yeah. It's very much to me and I love the idea because that fits with that idea of balance as well, doesn't it? And balancing out things. And also the other thing I would throw out right quick is there's that idea, and I see people are talking about it in chat, that necromancy or certain spells within necromancy drain life force from someone. And again, this is a kind of unnatural position for a human being. You're bordering on the vampiric, you're bordering on the acquiring talents that are normally reserved for certain types of undead, if that makes sense. And I mean, that you can see where that would potentially, from certain perspectives, put a soul at risk. So in other words, there's a wide range. There doesn't have to be the evil necromancer is a great thing, but there could also be culturally forms of necromancy which were intended, and the function was not necessarily malevolent.
Right, agreed.
Right, and that's
and
where
the
you see these
Deathmaster, by the way,
archetypes.
Alan can speak to having run afoul of a Deathmaster named Wrathbon in one of my. He was a recurring villain who.
I don't think Deathmasters can be neutral or good though. They're last.
No. Deathmasters are absolute. They're followers of Orcus, and that's the thing is that again you have that where it's borderline intruding on the divine, or in this case, the fiendish. It's something other planar that kind of you're straddling that line in a way that would make a lot of religions and a lot of people very uncomfortable.
So how many of us have had PC necromancers in their game?
A long time ago, but I still used classes and stuff.
Sort of.
Now I still have that. There's some player characters who can cast some spells in this range, so to speak. So it's not, and just because they are tainted evil doesn't necessarily means that they're only used for evil, so to speak. It's for instance, we have. There's one spell that is primal in my necromancer list, and that's contagion that gives you diseases and stuff. And not all these spells are used for evil purposes, even if some of them might even be tainted, meaning they might be used. For instance, I have it from Horned Society and some of the Horned ones. They might use it to kill other evils, so to speak, but they use evil tools to use fire to beget fire, so to speak. It's kind of so in that sense they use fire to fight fire. So it's not necessarily always evil is not the end goal just because you use evil tools or tools that are tainted evil.
I will say that mechanically, one of the things I do, Sam mentions that he had one just recently, but the player was walking up to that evil line while still playing a hero. One of the things I like to do is the closer you come to that line and the more you cross over that line. Back in the TSR Lankmar thing, there was the whole thing about what would happen, how arcane users would basically be afflicted by different physical changes, right? Well, something would mark them as unnatural. And I go ahead and I incorporate that. It's like, as you start straddling that line,
it's right in this book.
And you start going over.
It's called, it's called the price.
Exactly. If you
but they took that from the first edition Lankmar.
Oh, they did? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's cool. If meaning for me, if you use enough spells, they use the necrotic strain, so you play with that. That will
Yeah,
drain you,
let me go to
so
that.
to speak, eventually, and vice versa. So yeah.
Dogs start disliking you, or you wind up acquiring your skin winds up acquiring an unhealthy pallor.
Yeah, this book is worth
Your
getting.
teeth
If you
fall
don't
out.
have it, get the PDF at minimum.
Or
it is really
yes,
good.
yeah, it's a great one.
Dark
So
Priests,
and it's also blue for DMs. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good book. I'm looking where the price is.
Yep.
Is it at the end?
Yeah, the necromancy book is really good, and
Tools of the
also
Trade.
for those who are interested, some of the deities that it introduces for necromancy in relation to necromancy are really cool too.
Yeah.
Chapter
Curtis had the question of can a necromancer be good? And I say in principle, yes. But it will be hard because a lot of the spells and forces they're using are tainted evil. But that is just it kind of smells bad in my campaign. It doesn't give you allegiance to something. It just means that the demons and others might like the smell of you, so to speak, because you're dealing with forces they normally do, so they might like what you smell like, and then others might not like what you smell like. But
and I have to raise the question too. I notice just to address Curtis's comment. Why would a forensic examiner need to be, if you were having a forensic examiner who uses necromantic spells, why would they have to be good? In other words, you could be lawful neutral.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you know my horror and hools, and also Gary Khan and all, and Valmoku loves playing the character. I have Dex and Misunderstood. He's a multi-class cleric necromancer. He tries to use his necromancy for benign purposes. You know, like he throws that spectral hand out there, and then he can do his healing touch spells through his spectral hand at distance, for example. So you know, but you know, he's shunned from the Selenian elves. He's a gray elf. Yeah.
Well, Jay, does it also depend on what types of spells they're using?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%. He's not using he's not using ghoul touch, or he's not trying to drain levels from you and stuff like that. So but this is great. This price here. There's a ton of them in here. I mean, look, you got to cut yourself.
The unholy compulsion.
Yeah. It just eats fresh uncooked meat once per day. Yeah. So there's a lot of really gross stuff in here. So
I use stuff from there. I use stuff when it's starting out, though. I start with the Lankmar stuff because that's relatively that should be enough of a sign, if that makes sense, that you're going down the wrong path. And then when you progress, that's when I would use those tables. It's like that's when the stuff starts hitting the fan, and you're you're kind of noticeably distasteful. Your company is distasteful to others.
I want to show everyone something, how crazy this is to compile this. You know me, I like first editioning everything back, so it's not as fair. Here's my Necromancer complete spell list, right? And they go up to 7th level spells, just like Illusionist. All right, here's the chart that shows each book. Not counting Arthur Kane and Player's Handbook. Look at this. I mean, it's such a freaking mess. How many, what is it, 15 to 20 book references? They're all over the place. And that's the problem with creating an in-depth Necromancer with its own spell list. Because it took me, I don't know, this is 25 years of compilation. So, and there's probably more out there in other places. But that's where I got all of my spells. Yeah. And the packet spells, most of them are from Dragon. And now I know most of them are in Ed's book. So there you go. So
I have 45 spells in my Necromancy School of Magic list.
So
now, but there will be more added. I have a list of stuff to add as well.
28 times 7. I have roughly 200.
But that's not. Is that only Necromancy spells, or are that spells that can be cast by Necromancers?
Necromancer spells. Some of them are crossovers. It's like So like Unseen Servant.
Okay. Oh yeah, but I was meaning I have 45 spells in the Necromancy School of Magic, so to speak. So that
Blue Box, good to see you there, Rory. My guess is out of this list, I'm going to say 150 to 160 of them can only be cast by Necromancers. That's a guess.
Okay.
Cool. Roughly about that. And it's taken a long. Thank you. For the raid in. But just note that I love Necromancers so much that's a little bit crazy.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yes, Alan. What about you, man? I mean, so you say
I was just kind of doing some counting, I guess. Looks like I probably got about 140 to 180.
Yes, you're there too, man. It's like a lot of work.
But mine's not just core necromancer spells. So what I do when I create a class is I'll give them access to existing spells that are, and then tweak that spell. So they might get a variation of Evard's Black Tentacles that's a little different in that it may have a longer or shorter duration or range or other effect changes. They do more or less damage, that kind of stuff, as an example.
Yep.
So. And Sam raises what I think is an important point, which is between second and third, as things went into third, some of those spells became some of the spells that had been considered kind of necromancy became divination, conjuration, abjuration.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
absolutely. reclassified spells.
Oh, yeah,
much more rigorously than they had.
Raised Dead is a necromantic spell, which right. Just for
and also, I think when you go back, like I said, that goes back to what I was saying, that when you look at necromancy in cultures, the necromancy as it was once practiced was also a form of divination. It was also a form of conjuration. You could conjure spirits. You could do all sorts of things with this. So it makes sense, if that makes sense. And it makes sense that a necromancer would have access to some of those spells, even if they are now explicitly labeled as something else.
Another great publication you may want to check out is Hallowfaust City of Necromancers.
Yes.
What a great... thank you, Bobo. This is a great third party... it's a neutral location for necromancers because that's how they deal with their dead and all. And so it's got a little bit of an evil tint to it, but it's actually a really good book from Scarred Lands. So let's give you some of that.
And it raises some interesting ideas about, again, that idea of someone can willingly offer up themselves to serve their community after they're dead.
That's true. That's deadly.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think is a very fascinating.
Game shouldn't end just because character dies. The campaign should continue. Definitely.
Absolutely.
That's when that's phase 2 comes. So yeah.
Close to a
by the way, I've
good.
changed damage types according to necrotic and stuff because in 5e you have a necrotic damage. It's just a flavor. It's that you can be resistant to or vulnerable to. But I also increased that you have strength drain and life drain. Life drain takes away your death saves. So if you get them, that means that you might die instantly, so to speak, and they can be really hard to get back again.
Force.
Yeah, and the strength drain that just drains the maximum number of hit points you can have, even if you heal, so to speak. So those are two ways that necrotic damage can be more flavorful without killing you outright, so to speak. But it still makes you much more vulnerable, so to speak. Yeah.
We had a character in the game I play in Bill Sylvie's Monday Night Greyhawk campaign, and one of the PCs had been beaten by a clay golem.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because 16th level cleric.
Yeah, down to 15 hit points. So Bill pulls out the glassography. It's like, well, looks like the nearest 16th or 17th level clerics in Valuna City, so I guess you're going there.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a weird old school quirk from a golem that is
it's hard to find these.
Yeah, or like swords of wounding, same idea.
Yeah, definitely. So how can we, all of us, improve on the dark arts, especially necromancers and other ones? I've been working. My Shadow Mage, it has the spells are like 1/3 the size of, because there aren't that many. And that's why I had to use all out of the Welcome Rituals book, which has a lot of shadow magic in it. So what can we do?
Most of which I wrote.
Really?
Yeah. So I published my first article way back in the day when I was a kid in White Wolf magazine number 11, and it was a follow-up to White Wolf magazine number 8. Stuart Wyack introduced the Shadow Master class in there, and he had one spell for each level of the class, so there were 7 spells, and then he kind of sketched out a couple others. So then I took that and ran with it. I created a whole bunch of new spells, and ones inspired by all the shadow stuff in Greyhawk and Gary's writings and things I thought should be there, and published that. And then they published those at the time, without me knowing they were being republished in Relics and Rituals.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and we got that straightened out later. That was fine, but it was.
You're kind. You're kind.
Well, they paid me for it.
Oh,
they straightened it out by paying me for them appearing in Relics and Rituals, so that worked.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, so a lot of the shadow magic spells that are in there are ones I had done, but they only took the original spells for the White Wolf article. They didn't take the modified versions of things that I had put in there. So like the changes to Evard's Black Tentacles, or
Right.
things like that, whatever. They only wanted the brand new stuff. So
did you do stuff in Relic and Rituals 2 as well?
No, I just did the first.
Okay,
well,
the first one.
They did the first one on my behalf, I guess.
Man. There's some great spells in here. You did D'Artagnan Shadow Bolt? Please tell me that's you.
Yeah, that's mine. They changed
wow.
the name. They added names to them.
Oh so my gosh, Alan!
Yeah, so my Shadow Master spells, I published the first set in Nox Spell Magazine number 6, which was the last issue. And that's the 1st through 4th level shadow spells, I think. And then the 5th, 6th, and 7th level spells were in the next one. So, which never got published.
I can't believe that. That's your spell right there. Thrown shadow energy that causes 1d6 damage per level. That's like a mainstay of our shadow mages in our campaign. What a small world.
It's a fun one.
Oh my gosh, Alan. That's amazing. So we just had a gotcha moment. I mean, how many? We have about every 6 months we have a gotcha moment, right, Anna? Like a revelation, like when Nistel's Magic Aura was written by Leonard Kafka, or Monty Old DM. Wow, it was how that came about. That is unbelievable. Yep. So Greyhawk is Scarlet. It sounds like Greyhawk is a Scarlands author. Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I guess so.
Wow. That is fantastic. I love these books. I love them.
So I used to do a lot of reviewing for Dragon and other stuff back when 3E was new. And so I received a comp copy of Relics and Rituals, and I was just kind of scanning through it. And I looked through the credits. I'm like, Alan Grohe? What?
Wow. That is awesome, dude. That made my day, man. That's so fantastic. Because there was a need for it. Once again, it's so hard to create a class. If I'm babbling, please, I'm sorry, everyone. But it's so hard to create a class that there's not enough spells. I mean, because I hate doing it. Yeah. I hate doing it the other way.
Well, when you look at the one Illusionist, it's until they added the spells from Dragon Magazine and Unearthed Arcana.
Yeah.
It was a much more limited class. So yeah.
And my Shadow Mage supplements the rogue class. Look, that's it. Now there's some more written down because I found a couple more and they're handwritten down on here, but that's it. Look, only 11th first. It's way smaller than the other the Necromancer because there's just not enough.
I'll send you the copy of the articles in Noxspell then.
All right, that would be fantastic. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. I always want to.
I guess the one at least. Yeah.
It is a very, very popular class in my game because it supplements thieves, bounty hunters, and assassins. They become multi-class, so that they're using their shadow abilities for the rogue abilities. So that's really cool. Awesome! Wow.
Yeah. So I've been meaning to add the class to my blog, and the reason I haven't is because Blogger is such a horrible editing interface. That building out the tables and stuff is just such a pain for spells and things like that. So I just haven't done it. So I should really probably just either rescan the original one from Noxspell or my original notes for them. So if put them up just as a PDF like I did the Necromancer. So
if you want to build your own Necromancer, you start with that book and these 3 to get spells. Complete Book of Necromancers, Pages from the Mages, and the Seven Sisters have a ton of Necromancer spells in it. Flesh Shiver is in this book. It's one of my favorites of all time, where you break the bones in the neck. Which we remember Eric talked about that. We all talked about that at GaryCon. So there's a lot of great spells in those books. That's where I started, and didn't realize I was even using this Ed Greenwood book as well. So the question is,
one of my
Go ahead, Alan.
Sorry, one of my old DMs in college, Alan Rook, he had this NPC character in his homebrew world, and so it wasn't Greyhawk or anything, but he worshipped the god of sort of death, space, nullity, which was named Lurk. And his character had, as a priest of Lurk, could cast Fingers of Leprosy, which was his version of die 6 damage per level, and it was kind of like Alan always kind of imagined it as the lightnings of the Emperor, you know, striking up and down on Luke when he does that.
Right.
Only what it would do is it would like rot and flay your flesh off of your bones instead of just electrocuting you. So
so if you look, there are spells that you can actually put like ring. I'm serious. They're in Dragon. You can put a ring. It's called Flesh Box. You stick it inside you, and it goes on your rib cage, rib head, and then it counts as a ring to wear. I mean, there are those kind of spells that I found over the years for necromancers.
Interesting.
Just crazy stuff.
I've used a variation of that with some undead where they have rings on their rib cages.
It's pretty neat.
That's
you just
cool.
need to know, because I love necromancer so much, is to know where to look. But once again, I imagine there's very little conversion to 5e, and that's where Anna, a conversion to 5e for some of those spells would be awesome.
Oh yeah, we should dig into them.
And maybe talk about that with Will or whatever, because I just think it's a class that makes sense for me. And it sounds like it makes sense for Alan and as well. So.
Yeah, and it's also cool because these are spells that are cool to have in a DM's arsenal, so to speak. Because so it's a lot of cool spells to throw at the party, so to speak. That are not the standard tropes for the player characters.
Another example is that right in From the Ashes and right into Slavers, it talks about High Pass, which is there's this coven of female necromancers out there at the High Pass. And I'm thinking to myself, that's all it ever says. I'm thinking to myself, they're not going to be benign just hanging out there because they just want to have parties, right? They got to be up to something, right? That's why they're necromancers. They're not just there, we're just hanging out necromancers with all love. And they're not like hippies or anything. You know what I'm saying? They're out there up to no good, right?
Or they might be hippies of the Charles Manson variety.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I have them, as you saw the last 2 weeks, if you watch, I have them infiltrating a secret entrance into underneath Hardby. That just how happens to be under Tom's Halfling's character's bar. He bought it cheap, and no one knew why it was always abandoned. Now you know. And now they're fighting these necromancers from the High Pass, and they're nasty. And so I just always there's little tidbits of information out there. Yeah.
They've been mentioned in passing in my campaign.
Yeah.
And also, I was going to say something else that is really good about shadow magic in general is, of course, you have that unpublished, probably unfinished. I know Gygax had outlined it, or said he had outlined it, but that module that
Skip Williams was going to do.
Yep,
which
Skip
one?
Williams was going to write it. It was going to be called Shadowlands.
Oh.
Right? It was going to be the original, I think, WG7.
Yeah, and then
Oh, wow.
Then it petered out. And then we wound up with Castle Greyhawk. So
only can go up from there.
Yeah,
but
so
it was
the material in Gary's
and stuff and everything.
Yeah, a lot of the material in like City of Hawks, if I remember right,
Yep.
is the kind of the source for where that stuff was inspired from in Greyhawk.
Yep.
And it's full of great stuff. And I Rob played a little bit with shadow magic stuff too in his Tower of Blood adventure.
Right.
The Uderlings in there are vampiric gnomes that are undead that are infused with shadow stuff, and then there's some additional shadow related creatures in there and stuff like that too.
We need to set a date for Rob to come back on. We need to get Rob back on. Sorry,
I weave a lot of that into my campaign in terms of things that my characters hear about, or they'll encounter shadow creatures or hear tales of these things from the plane or quasi-plane of shadows. And I love doing that because it creeps the hell out of people.
That's the whole idea.
Me and my shadow.
Yeah, and that's the whole idea I like with Greyhawk and Necromancy, because there's been Soul Lich, the Soul Liches around, Liches are around. There's vampires. There's all stuff that really it's
the
not.
Earthland are supposed to be necromancers.
Right.
And a lot of necromantic spellcasters doesn't necessarily need to be specialized in necromancy. It's something that some local shamans or humanoid spellcasters and their witch doctors and shamans, whatever, they dabble in it, so to speak. It's part of their repertoire, so to speak, and a lot of the casters. So I have drive a lot of evil, like a lot of Ayusian henchmen. They probably know a little bit of it or some of it. Whether they're clerics, meaning Ayusian clerics, it's part of a big part of their repertoire is to dig into it. And some of his other wizards and others, they probably have some of it. And humanoid the spellcasters and witch doctors or whatever, the shaman of the orc tribe or whatever it is, they probably have it as it too, just to intimidate or to pain or torture or scare the living bejesus out of things. It's part of that
Literally.
that control, so to speak. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So I can see a lot of necromantic spellcasters are the iconic ones we think of are the ones that specialize in it. It's like the Lich or whatever. But there's a lot of others, I think, in the campaign that are dabble in that type of magic, but they're far from specializing in it, so to speak.
That's one of the reasons I wanted to leave in that Oath Journal article. I left it ambiguous. I suggested that perhaps these clan communities that did have kind of a two-headed judicial system, if you will, between the druidic and the necromantic, that perhaps these had in some way been inspired by some of the druids meeting with Vecna at some point, or with one of the Earthland liches, or maybe it's a tradition that was always there, or maybe it was always there, but it was complemented by some thing that one of the liches threw at them, a little, here's a little something for you low lives to play with. And then the separate cast kind of breaks off to try and explore that and refine it. I wanted to leave that ambiguous because again, I love that idea that there's a certain line at history that you can't, beyond which you can't know, short of perhaps invoking necromancy yourself, right? Perhaps beyond asking a god or speaking with dead, you're not going to know the answer to these questions. And it leaves a kind of moral ambiguity as well as to whether was this always a good thing, or was it a bad thing, or was it a good thing that became tainted? You don't know. Or was it just part of the balance?
Yeah. So and it's also powers that are really cool to put into magic items and artifacts and stuff.
Absolutely.
Too. Yeah.
I don't have that, Von Mokel. Can you link that to me in Whisper or in Discord? That's cool. All right. So Rexalis asked a question about witches, and here's my answer to that. I have a witch class. It's a hybrid of the Dragon 114 witch, okay, which is here. They got a lot of trouble for this cover, by the way, if you remember.
Yep. That's a good witch class.
Yeah, and
it is
Timothy Brannan's first edition publication, and it's like this is like $5 on Drive Through RPG. He has it through, I think, 4th edition. He never did a 5th edition one, but this is. I mean, look at this. This thing is 119 pages.
Yeah,
there's a lot of good information in here. So
both 3rd edition Pathfinder had lots of both necromancer, witches, and a whole bunch of stuff. So
we have a witch now. Witch is its own class. So if you allow multi-class, witch mage is allowed because it's 2 separate classes. It got to be a half elf derivation and all. Tim Brown has done a lot of work on witches. I agree. I've had problems trying to connect with him to try and get him on.
Also, to follow up on his question, I would say, because I noticed the Renee were asked in there, you do have, if you go through the Greyhawk Grimoire, you'll find the Renee Wise Women, and you'll also find some stuff on hedge mages, which can also fill a similar function to the witch, depending on what kind of angle you're looking at with witchcraft.
Yeah, and in addition to that, the guy who wrote the article in 114 wrote an earlier version of the witch in like issue 41 or 42.
Yeah.
I think it's 41.
Yeah, it was pretty
Tom
early.
Mulvey had some witch stuff in there also.
The same issue,
in the same issue. And then the original version of the witch was published in TD number 5 or so, which is the one that was published anonymously, and it was reprinted in Best of Dragon number 1. And so when I built my witch, I used all 3 of those versions for it, but I haven't gone back and
because they talk about the high secret order of witches in that, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Like there's that spell that can age someone 100 years in there, and there's one that just removes all the flesh right off their body, if I recall. Some really nasty spells. Yeah.
And like some of the ways I approached the design of my necromancer were actually inspired by those secret order witches, because the idea is you need to have a character that's powerful enough as a single figure, or a single figure with some minions or whatever, to be a credible threat to the entire party. So that they're not just knocked off in a couple rounds.
And I was just going to throw out there the idea of an aging spell like that, Jay. I mean, that's straight up fairy tale.
It is
folklore.
No, you're
if you
dead.
think about and it's also one of those connections that you find between, say, speaking of necromancy or things related, it's one of those relations that you find between witches and vampires. The idea of them stealing youth or vitality.
Mm-hmm.
So true.
From people.
No, that's a great point. It's just like, once again, with first edition and second edition, I'm not bad mouthing any other editions. I always thought, and maybe this is just because I'm biased, it could be, that you could take any rule set that's there, and there was room to add stuff, because there's only so many base classes. And they talk about, remember early on, and I think it's a line in AD&D, it says, and I think it's in Dungeon Master's Guide, they talk about witches and warlocks, and nothing ever comes of it. There's that one line, says, oh yeah, with all their things. Right. Was it in Holmes
introduced witches in the list of playable character classes.
That's it. That was where it was.
Holmes Basic. In Holmes, and he had a witch in his campaign.
Okay.
Which was included in his relatively famous Confessions of a Dungeon Master story or article about D&D in 1980 in Psychology Today.
Okay.
So that's one of the ones we had reprinted in Tales of Peril. And I was hoping he had a custom witch class of his own, but so far we haven't found that in his manuscripts, unfortunately. So.
Oh man, that would have been awesome.
That would be cool to see.
Yeah, because I remembered that, and I was like, wow, it's just like, where did that go? And then you hear you hear a little bit of the backstory. Oh, it went by the wayside because of this and that, and that's a shame. So that because I just would. We had to fill our own holes, right? We filled our own holes. That sounds awful. Not in a sexual way. We filled all these gaps. We've been doing it for 40 years because just there should be something here, and that's part of the thing with the dark arts. I love the dark arts, and it doesn't have to be all evil versus good. You can always there's room in between. I think.
Yeah.
There's room in between. I think it's the same way for druids. Because I now allow neutral good and neutral evil druids depending on their ethos. I think the evil druids are the ones city dwellers all got to go because they're ruined. They're almost like the eco-terrorists. I mean,
like Rob's Dark Druids.
Yeah, exactly. Dead on. Rob's Dark Druids is genius, by the way. So Anna, your thoughts about that as far as and your application. Like that good versus evil struggle and all the gray areas in between.
For me, evil and good is like a flavor. It's just like you can sense it. If you're like aligned with the good powers up there, you can sense that, oh, someone is using foul magic that is foul to me, so to speak. But on the other hand, if you're a demon, it just smells like, oh, that they're using powers that are good to me. So it's more like, I tend to use it as it's a bit like color vision. If you see things through a prism, and that means that, oh, you like it because you can sense that they're using the same kind of tools and methody or have the same outlook as me, so to speak. It doesn't mean anything in per se. It's just that they're using tools that appeal to me. I understand what this is. This is my language, so to speak, and the vice versa with evil. So as a paladin or a good cleric, you might be able to sense that when someone, that they're on my side. We think alike in this sense, meaning they can sense, or usually the opposite. You can sense when they're using something you don't like, so to speak. That's usually how I want to interpret it. So I try to take moral out of it to some degree, but it's more like a gut feeling. It's something that, if you have detect evil as a paladin, and if there's a demon around, you say, oh, I got a bad feeling about this. You can sense it in your gut, so to speak, that something is not done right here. So, and if someone is casting necromantic magic that taints evil, that sense you get a gut wrench feeling that that spellcaster is doing something that feels bad to you, so to speak. You sense that that's not, you don't like that, so to speak. That's as far as I want to go. I just
Okay.
want to use it as a tame, so to speak. It's no real, rarely mechanics. It comes to it once you go more steps, so to speak. Let's say you go down in the abyss, or let's say you can use it as a sense. You can actually detect evil as a sense. You can start detecting evil strongly, so to speak. So that means that you might be able to sense, and that means that you're basically seeing with your tummy, so to speak, or you're in a core. So as a paladin, you sense that you sense evil. That means that you can walk around and you can be out in a wood or out in the woods, or you can be in a grand square with lots of people, and all of a sudden you get a sense that there's something evil here. You can sense it close by, and that might be a demon in disguise or whatever. But the scary thing, or the kind of the weird thing happens if you step into an evil temple. The whole temple is evil, and that means that then you can't detect the demon because he just blends in. But on the other hand, the demon can detect you because you stand out like and shine. So someone who could detect good, if you are a good cleric aligned, or a paladin who wears have your holy sword that has the power of whatever god, and that the demon can then sense you. So I try to make these things mechanically interesting without just being pluses and minuses, so to speak. So tie it into D&D physics, and then try to make that fantastical, so to speak. So that's the same thing with spells, meaning you can a caster that goes around casting things that make people sick and ill and draw their life out of them, that is tainted evil. So that means that when you go around casting these spells, you get the aura, so to speak, and you can sense when you cast them, they will stand out. But on the other hand, demons and devils will be like, oh, they're using things that I'm familiar with, so to speak. So they will see it in a more favorable light, or they might see it as competition. In some ways, they're using tools that encroaching on my. So not necessarily evil ones might not like you because you're using evil tools, but the good ones definitely not like you. So yeah.
Well, I think even the neutral. I mean, like I said, when you have that idea of breaking the cycle of life and death, I'll describe something to my players that is affiliated with necromancy, and I'll just describe it in such a way that their hairs will stand up on the back of their neck.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be grotesque or whatnot, just unsettling, just disturbing and disturbed.
But a lot of neutrals might not even sense it, meaning they don't think in that dimension. They don't have.
I'm saying that when they see signs of it, or if there's a strong enough
presence. Some neutrals might be scared of all the extremes, so they might sense both good and evil and get a quirky feeling of all of them, so to speak, depending on. So yeah.
Because again, necromancy is one of those things, and this is true of druidism too. I don't see them as particularly rampant in my Greyhawk.
No, I agree.
They're there, and for a lot of people, these are the things of legend and nightmare. And a folklore and
stigma.
There's this accumulation. Yeah, there are stigmas attached to some of these
exactly.
things.
Some of them, yeah. And druidism in my campaign, druids are usually they are half primal casters, meaning they're tuned to nature. They can call up animals and they can speak to plants and they can do things that are primal magic. But they also have a divine magic, meaning they're tied into Beery and other gods, so they also have divine magic. So they're kind of a mixture. Like we'll say a low-level practitioner of druidic arts might be only primal caster, but once they get initiated and move up, they learn more divine magic and more powerful stuff like that, so to speak. But they start out at meaning in order to become a druid, you need to first know your primal magic, and then you need to start adhering to the old traditions of Beery and Falang and the other old clan gods, so to speak, and start learning their stuff. Then you can become a druid. So druid is kind of a dual spellcaster in my campaign in that way. They have both their base primal magic and then they have the divine magic on top, so to speak.
Well,
nothing forbids them from learning arcane as well, but that's outside of their normal druid stuff, so to speak.
I think Bob Huso does kind of touch on something though, which would be there's also the question of a world in which there's resurrection spells
Mm-hmm.
and reincarnation and things like that. The idea of bringing back someone. And then there'd be and then this is for individual DMs, you know, and I think it's a nice kind of capstone note for things. How the characters and their cultures approach death in general.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I remember, I had a conversation some time ago about how, we really haven't discussed burial rituals or the disposal of remains
We
in
need
Greyhawk
to.
at
I've,
any
I've
kind of
written a
length.
blog post on that.
Yeah, and I have
haven't
tons
published
of
it yet
notes
because
and
I thought it was too
things
morbid.
for mine.
Yeah,
Yeah, because very much how you approach
Yeah.
death helps influence how you approach life. Which is
Yeah.
why maybe in 5th edition,
Yeah,
where
Les, I love you. This is awesome. I wrote every culture needs to have meaning. How the Flan does it, and the Iridians and the Sul and stuff like that, and they change over time. Because in a world of a lot of undeads and stuff, making a graveyard might not be the best of things to do, so to speak. So a lot of them might have other ideas of doing it.
and you can also think of the economy of these kinds of spells, like
exactly
in a 5th edition world, because there are some where resurrection and spells and such are common. What does that really do to a character's psychology? It's like, there's a yo-yoing effect that takes place.
Yep.
Or can
And you can
take
see an
place.
evolution. Meaning, the way I saw it was that the discovery of necromancy and undeath and stuff that became like it spread like a new technology, and it became a political ideology tied to it. So I say that a couple of thousand years ago they started to discover it, and it became widespread. They started to realize, oh, you can take your dead ones and you can raise them back up again. And then it made more advances to it, and powerful leaders, meaning politicians in fantasy world, meaning spellcasters and stuff like that, they realized that, oh, I can turn myself into an dead thing, and then I can rule forever. And that's when I have it that the old clan and others, that's when the first the rulers became liches and stuff. You have a Serarak and a bunch of them, and eventually culminating with Vecna. So that became like a political
the fantasy world equivalent of the Butlerian Jihad
exactly,
in the Dune
or the
novels.
spread
Let's
of
get rid of this
communism or
technology.
fascism or whatever.
We're just letting them roll with this. You and I are just sitting here just...
in a fantasy setting. So meaning in one ruler have discovered that I can actually dig up the dead and use them as a resource and turn myself undead and rule forever. Then other rulers realize that, damn, that's powerful, and it kind of spread, and then of course comes the counter reaction. A lot of people became abhorred, they hated it, and they ganged up together in order to fight it, so to speak. And
what we need to do sometime is have a instead with due apologies to Thomas Mann, we'll have a Death in Greyhawk episode. So,
but then you can have others, and you can have other. You can see it the way I have it, that the Flan, they were a culture that realized that they needed to deal with it, but they didn't see it completely negative. They saw undeath as a resources, almost like nukes. It was terrible, horrible, super dangerous, but keep it in the back pocket just in case someone comes to want to kill us. You bring out the horned ones, and you bring out the hordes of the dead, and you're going to, meaning if you come to kill us, we're going to send the doomsday weapon, and don't mess with us, kind of thing. So they didn't, even as a culture, they were not evil, but they knew they could still use evil in some sense, so to speak. So I have that the Flan culture. That's where I see the druids are neutral, meaning they, in that sense, that most of them are good and so on, but they keep an eye open that, okay, if you come and mess with me, we have our cousins who live out there, the cult, so to speak. We will call for them, and that will not be good. They might kill us too, but they will definitely kill you.
We definitely should all get together and exchange our notes sometime.
Yep. So I want to meaning part of the story to it. So meaning the Flan, what they did was they basically do all the dead ones and put them in a hole that you can actually they will not come up by themselves, but you can fish them out of the hole and use them eventually in the future, so to speak. So those are the necropolises that are that I use and others are looking for, so to speak. They're hidden away, and only a few priests know where they are buried, because they are like the nuclear missiles waiting to go off somewhere. So that those are ideas that I play with. And then you have Other ones could be the wolf nomads. They gave the dead ones to the wolves. They put the bodies out there to be scavenged and eaten by the wolves and the wargs, so to speak, as a ritual, so to speak. They both made sure that they got rid of, so they couldn't come back as undead, and they also gave them as a gift to the wolves, meaning the big wargs and the powerful wolves up there. So yeah.
And on that positive note.
Oh, exactly. That was me going off on a tangent.
That's all right. Let's roll it.
Yeah. So I want to just pick up real quick on something Anna was saying a little bit earlier around it, and this is kind of in response to your question about the neutrality and good evil options for these dark art classes, Jay.
Yeah.
You know, you were talking a little bit about the detection of evil and things like that, and or good, as the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
But in my games, I definitely use the Dungeon Master's Guide's interpretation of detect evil, in the sense that it doesn't just detect you if you're a low level person with an evil alignment. It's like it's detecting supernatural
evil,
supernatural good.
Yeah, you need to do something that is tainted evil, meaning cast necromantic spells, have a connection to a demon, serve a demon lord, or something like that. So
exactly.
Yeah, just hating your neighbors and killing them would not, even if you have a chaotic evil alignment and been a mass murderer in your village, that if you mean mass murder, yes, maybe if you have that deep of intent, but just if you go around being a hateful person wouldn't give you an evil tint.
Right.
So last question was Bobo said, so necromancy and the reincarnation or resurrection is evil, good, or neutral? And I'm like, no, I think in Greyhawk and D&D it exists. It's like eating dinner. It exists as a way to bring back, someone powerful or whatever, and it's not any alignment in specific. Yeah, so just.
But alignment, meaning there are many different ways you can use it. It's just that as a DM for your campaign, you need to figure out how you want to use it to tell your stories, and how you want your players to interact with it, and how much mechanics you want, how much you just want it as a story element, and so on. Because in some D&D, especially early edition, it was part of mechanics. And so on. I tried to take it out of there for the most part, but it ties into senses and stuff, so to speak. So there is a little bit of mechanics in there.
And also, just to throw this out there, one can consider stepping outside of oneself. How would this god view resurrection?
Yeah.
And also, what are the legal ramifications? Like I know in Living Greyhawk, I believe it was Furiani and some of the other countries. Because of the vampire Thrommel issue, had specific rules governing the idea that you don't just come back from the dead and claim, whether you're resurrected or undead, you don't just suddenly appear after dying and then say, hey, I want my inheritance.
Yeah, it's legal ramifications. So And when do you proclaim someone dead if you can resurrect them even decades after they die and stuff? So there is a lot of stuff like that. Now when we're grown up and we deal with
wanting to seize their heritage as well.
Yep.
Yeah. This is probably why Joss, is against resurrection without being consulted first.
Right.
You're breaking the societal laws.
Resurrection also ages you, by the way, when you cast it. There is a negative effect. Raised dead, there's not, but source. I'm not trying to be a jerk here. I'm saying I'm not reinventing the wheel. Raised Dead's resurrections have been in the game since 1980, and I was a kid. I'm not changing it. It's part of our game.
I still there. It's still in my games too. But but it's kind of comes with ramifications.
I can be So you can be open to the possibility. It's just not happening in my game personally.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
So it's to tie back to Anthony Huso a little bit. One of the stories he recounts from his campaign is that the player characters requested a Raised Dead resurrection from a high priest NPC who is in the game. And available to be able to, had the power to do that. And, they apparently weighed the consequences of him aging and stuff like that. So the way Anthony runs his game by the book, the cleric, when they cast it, cast the spell and had to make his system shock roll to survive the unnatural aging, and he failed.
Oh.
And so their 16th level cleric who could cast resurrection is now gone from the campaign.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. And I have it in my that resurrections and other stuff. You need to locate both the body and you need to locate the spell, the soul and the spirit. And that means that if you die in the abyss and they eat the soul, you're screwed, so to speak.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's not that easy. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it can be devilishly difficult to get someone back, so to speak.
Or if the soul's imprisoned in a magic
Exactly.
jar,
Yes,
or
exactly.
Oh, yeah,
spell,
of
or
course,
trap the
of course.
soul, or whatever. Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff like that, and especially if you give your soul away for good purposes, that means that if you're serving an evil deity, you can say goodbye to stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So he might get you back in some other shape or form, so to speak, but you basically given up the right, so he won't come and harvest you quickly if you've done that. So,
Welcome, we've promoted you to being a quasit.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Or lemur or something like that. So
Please just note, the way the game works is that Raise Dead's a 5th level spell, 9th level clerics can cast it. You need to be 16th level to cast Resurrection. It is not like, oh, snap your fingers, you have that in my game. And plus, most Raise Deads are available because there's a lot of 9th level, 10th level, 11th level clerics. It's just the way it is. Resurrection,
but still, you have to find that soul and spirit and know them. And to me,
of course.
It's also different between creatures. Some creatures have souls and others have spirits, and that also is a different ball game. They comes with different plus and minuses depending on, like elves are they born soul creatures become spirit creatures, and so on. So it's kind of, the two are different in that sense. So you need to figure out which you are and what comes with that territory.
Right. Well, Pat, that's true. But how many player characters don't want? How many player characters like, I want my character raised, and then the DM goes, oh, your spirit doesn't want to come, your soul doesn't want to come back.
And it also depends on who is raising you.
Well, yeah,
and
of course.
Where. Yeah.
So we had this once, and then we'll end with this. Tim was DMing, and a character, one of the guys way back in the day was playing a neutral evil fighter, and he died, and they did Speak with Dead with him beforehand, and they go, we're not raising this guy. Why would we raise this guy? Seriously, why would we raise this guy? So then they actually conferred with his character, the spirit, and said, well, we want you to convert to a more ethical alignment. And he goes, no, I won't. And they said, well, stay dead. So that was that, and so there's options. There's it's not just saying we're running around snapping fingers, everyone's getting raised. All right, just please don't know it's not like that. So
in that sense, I have it like 5e rules, that if you just died and your soul and spirit is still attached to the body and hasn't gone away somewhere, then it's fairly easy to get someone back. But
it's like day per level, I think.
Exactly. But if you die in the abyss and there's someone there harvesting your soul, you might be screwed almost instantly.
Going into abyss, then you deserve to die.
Yeah, or someone from the abyss comes and harvest you, so to speak.
Or Dream House of the Nether.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, or you die in Doraka or something like that. It might be scary, right?
So I hope we all enjoyed this conversation. We could go on for a long time on this, and we'll do one on death and burial and things like that. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, we had a great couple of discussions tonight with Anthony and then this.
Yeah, absolutely. I knew it would be a nice two-parter here. I didn't want, I wanted to hold Anthony to only, he requested an hour, and that's what we did, and that was great. And Alan, thank you so very much for facilitating.
Oh, yeah,
Sure.
Thank you, services. Yeah, and thank you, Alan and Les. Yeah,
I bet you I can get him to stay longer if Ed's here too.
Okay,
it might well be. Now,
yeah.
In the event that you do a show with Ed and Anthony in the future. So Anthony has also had incantatrixes in his campaign.
Oh, I love them too.
And he's made he's modified the incantatrix a bit, going back to some of the witch ideas and things like that too.
Nice.
So so he definitely likes Ed's stuff as well.
Yeah, see if we can get him on for a DM's roundtable or something like that. So
yeah, that's a good idea too. I mean, we may do that in the future. So why don't we we'll roundtable it, just summary of the discussions tonight and some shout outs. Alan, why don't you start us off? What do you got going on?
Let's see. What do I got going on? It's
are you going you're going North Texas, correct?
Going to North Texas in June. So I'll be running the part 2 of the scenario I ran ran at Gary Connis for part 1. So that'll be fun to kind of pick that up. And then I'm going to be running the tribute adventure I wrote for Janelle Jaquays for the first time there. And North Texas was basically kind of her home convention. So that'll be
Wow.
very nice to
Yes.
be able to do for her and for Becky.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. And you know, just kind of plugging away on other projects and things.
So Alan, let's try this. I have night games on Saturday 18th or the 25th. I have the Ed Greenwood crossover game that night, and I also have Bones DMing on my channel on the 25th, which gives my Saturday mornings open on those 2 dates. So let's see if Rob's available the 18th or the 25th Saturday.
June or
May.
Okay, May
18th in the morning or May 25th in the morning.
25th.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, that's a month out.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay.
And Rob has a couple new releases that just came out this week. Some new PDFs. So he's released the living room.
Nice.
Living room in PDF. Or I forget what the exact title was, but it's the green cover version.
Yeah, I have that one. Yeah, it's with
yeah.
the big-eyed creature on the front.
Yeah. And then he has a couple new ones that came out at the same time too. So I haven't had a chance to actually look at them yet.
So yeah, let's see if that'll work, and if we can get it facilitated, that'd be great. And Alan, thanks for coming on, and this was awesome. I was so glad we all got to talk to him, just to know what he's about. And like I said, I love the one I downloaded myself, the one with the Throne of the Gods. I may give that one a shot. I may try.
Yeah, all of Anthony's adventures are great, and
definitely
he's run some Greyhawk campaigns a little bit. He had one going down along the south below the Amedio jungle while he had they were kind of transitioning into the new campaign before the Silver Prince mega dungeon campaign came up, and he included a bunch of kind of mappings for outer planar gods and information about the planes as part of work he did on the Zygil and Fall adventure, which is set in the astral plane. So he published that and included sort of info about his campaigns gods in there for the planes they reside in and stuff like that, and then information on the Greyhawk gods as well. So it's sort of like an outer planar master plane attributes matrix, which kind of he was originally planning to put into Zygil and Fall, and decided to make it basically be a standalone freebie download kind of thing. So anyway, so he's got Greyhawk in his heart in addition to his own home campaign as well.
Beautiful. That's awesome to hear, and thank you, and I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, you're welcome.
Les.
Just a second. I'm posting the link to Rob's site here in chat.
We'll go to Anna next. Then we'll do you. All right, sound good?
No, I'm good actually.
Oh, you're good. Okay.
Yep. Please.
I just wanted to make sure that Rob's website got
3 lines
posted in there.
Cool.
And so let's see. It's been a kind of interesting period. I've been going through. I'm not getting any younger, and I've decided that it's time for me to start doing all those wonderful tests that one starts taking as one gets older. So I've been doing a lot of that, and that's been occupying too much of my time. Now that a lot of that's past me, I've got. I'm returning to some of the articles that I had set aside, including an Arity legend about a fallen priest. Which will be, I think, really fun, and some other things. And I'm also working with Troy on a couple of things that were floating around. My campaign, the Spine Castle campaign, is ongoing and bloody. In the last session, we've taken a break, both because of my medical stuff and the result recently, where basically out of a total of 6 or 7 characters, I think, only 1 survived.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty messy. It was pretty bloody. It wound up with one of them being flung into a flaming pit of debris. And they may have sparked a riot in the city. And that might result in a civil war. So
Nothing important.
Nothing important. Yeah, exactly. It's like the nothing important happened today journal entry, right?
Yeah. That's cool.
So it's gonna be fun. The second group of adventurers will be arriving to into Spine Castle, to how can I put it, to discover what the initial party, which was supposed to be setting up a safe house, has left for them.
Left a lot of bodies. Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting, and I really look forward to seeing my players work their way through it. So yeah, fun times, my friends.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Sounds good, Les, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Really
hey, always a pleasure, and always a pleasure to be with you and Anna and Mr. Grohe there.
Yeah.
Cool. Anna.
Okay, so first a little bit of housekeeping. There was an update. I updated or got new versions of LA3 and LA4. It was a couple of small things that updated.
Cool.
A few that I reported that last week, but the problem is that I didn't remove the old files. So some other sites are probably linked directly to the file and not to the La Kafka website. So that meant that some people downloaded them and got the old versions. I've now removed the old files. So if the links don't work and you find them somewhere else, go to annabmeyer.com and then click on the La Kafka archive and you can get to it there, so to speak. So because there were some sites that instead of linking to my website just linked the files directly, so to speak, and therefore when I updated the page with the new links, those links didn't get updated. So that's just a little bit of housekeeping. Go to
I appreciate that. I'll look and see how I've got my links to those.
So I just I copy, so it's annabmeyer.com and you can just go there and there's a Linda Kafka and you can go to that page and make sure that, because I updated the posts there, so to speak. So I did that last week, but some people have said, oh, we didn't find the new files, because they were linked directly. So but that's part of the nature of the internet, so to speak. So my main focus right now is working really, really hard to get the GIS map done, so to speak. Since the World Machine stuff is not completely, it's not fixed, all the stuff yet. So I'm putting all the effort I can into getting the GIS conversion done, because there's so many other cool stuff I can do once it's done. So it's just sitting down and slogging through it. It will be a couple of more months before I'm done with everything, but almost all the settlements are done. And soon all the roads are done, and then we become all the borders, and after that is all the river names and area names and then all the political stuff. So a couple of more months, probably in June earliest, I will have but I might soon, I might give people are interested, I will share a geo package to test out, so you can download it and see in different forms. So there will be some, so it will come in probably about a month or so. I will probably have a first geo package that I will distribute so people can download and test out and see if it functions and stuff like that. It will not be fully featured, but it's more so people can start getting accustomed to see if they want to play around and make their own versions and stuff like that with it and test it out. So it's sometime during the summer, it's going to come, the first GIS based map. And to me, it looks much better than the old ones. And it's also much more tweakable. So we can get cool things that have grids and hex and hex overlays, and they can be, you can see it from space, so they can have projections and stuff like that. So that's going to be really cool. So once in all, we can have them with built-in digital measurement that actually is accurate, so to speak, because they are geo-referenced. So that's the main thing. But I also posted, awesome. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's cool. It's the map in itself is not the big thing. It's all the other stuff that will become possible once it's in there, so to speak. Yep. And I also posted, as part of my series of looking into my house rules, and a lot of the assumptions and stuff going into building the rules. And one of them is magical travel. We talked about that, I think it was a week ago, or during Legends and Lore. So I posted my take on the background of magical travel, so to speak. So it has some ideas and thoughts and stuff that I have. It's not hard rules. These are my assumptions that will then go into making rules, so to speak, for it. So it's a bit like you can use magical travel, can be astral, it might be ethereal, It might be Fey travel if you go through the Feywild. It might be shadow, shadow jaunt, and you can go between shadows and stuff. And then you have things like finding your destination, gates, portals, forks, tuning forks. Remember those? And beacons, and then the risks, meaning missed destination, detection, meaning who can see you traveling, and so on and so forth. And then deception, how you can use magical travel to take off someone else and not finding you and stuff like that. These are a first look at the basics, and it's just like I did with senses. I tried to build it into my idea of D&D physics, because just like senses and stuff, they work in the world of D&D physics. So, and some of this is also meaning if you have ethereal vision, or you can see in the plane of shadow, then you might be able to see creatures that comes and does it. And elemental teleporting and stuff, it's, to me, it's interesting, because the way I have it is that you actually don't travel faster than, it's very safe in that sense that it's hard to detect you. And if you can have a fire immunity and stuff, you can, or become a fire creature, you can travel through the plane of fire to somewhere else. The problem is that you can't travel fast with it. You can't teleport instantly. But if you want to take a couple of years to go from one volcano to another, that might be the magical travel of choice, so to speak, because it might be sneaky way of doing it. So I try to present different ideas around magical travel. So I got some good comments so far. So
Cool.
So thank you for that. So that's the stuff. The next one in this series will be a look at the basics, the very basic assumptions of die rolls and pluses and minuses and stuff like that. My look at my tweak of 5e, so to speak, the very, very basics, the stuff that normally all the rule systems consist of. For me, that's not the most interesting bit, but it's something that a rule system has to have its own basics, so to speak. So that's why I put it very close to 5e, but it's still a few tweaks. So that's the one coming next. Yep.
Oh, one thing I do want to throw out is, of course, to everyone out there, do check out Anthony's site.
Yes,
absolutely.
And I was going to mention that this is kind of funny. I was looking up something earlier today, seeing who had discussed him on the Cannon Fire Discord, and Alan Grohe and Jason Zavoda both mentioned at various points his City of Brass, Anthony's City of Brass. And so, like, if you don't trust my taste, and I couldn't blame you if you didn't, trust those two gentlemen of impeccable palate with their impeccable palates. It's a tasty adventure.
Yeah, there's good stuff in all those. Doing a deep dive on some of his adventures sometime would be great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to really digging into the one I got, because I think it'll fit my campaign really well. So,
yeah.
All right, real quick here. We had a great BattleTech game yesterday morning, and everyone's like, "When are we going to do the next scenario?" And I'm trying to figure out a date. I wanted to do May 4th, and I realized, well, my son's birthday is May 3rd, and we're probably going somewhere on Saturday the 4th, so I'm not sure if that's going to work. So I'll figure it out. Just letting you all know out there, all you people who played in it, I'm going to work out.
It's extra time for Patrick to get patched together.
Yeah, I was losing all those teeth and all. Yeah, he got messed up. Well, his character Marcus, he brought it on himself. So I don't feel that bad. So right, Patrick. Boom. Yeah. All right. Wednesday night, I think we're going to do Greyhawk City Tour Part 4, but it's subject to change if a topic comes up. I start my next new job tomorrow morning, so I don't know how much time free I'm going to have.
Uh-oh.
So I left. Yeah. So
new job.
I left the company I'd been with for only 4 months. I hated it. So I one of the previous offers I had, I took.
Okay.
It's for less money, but peace of mind's very important.
More sanity is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So we'll see. So I may not have a lot of time. That's Wednesday. There'll be a game. There'll be a game Thursday, and then Saturday morning is the Champions game.
That's going to be great.
Yes, Brett GMing, myself, Brett, Coco, and Bert playing in it.
Awesome.
Excuse me. All of a sudden, tickle cough. All right, so that is next Saturday. in the morning. And then next Sunday night is Keith Baker.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk Eberron, and we're talking about this Glim board game that I played at Gary Con. So that'll be next Sunday night on Gabbin. We'll have Keith on. Other special events are coming up. Have a next Nuclear Meat game is Saturday, May 11th. Minnesota Muse is going to join the group for this game. So we'll have all the regular powers that be and players from Nuclear Meat in this game. It's called Death in the Lort Mills. Why not? That doesn't mean I have the details yet. I thought, oh, that's a cool title. So, there. That's the 11th. The 18th is the big.
Perhaps some necromancers are involved in that.
Yeah, well, I have. Yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of have the outline for it, Alan. It's gonna be. I think it'll be funny. Yeah, because it's something like they're not. I always like throwing, especially with newer players, to old school stuff they would never even don't even know what it is because they're just like, what is that? So yeah, something to that effect. And then the great red wedding. I'm sorry, I'm just kidding. The wedding event from Gary Con is the 18th of May, Saturday night, and maybe one of those 2 mornings, the 18th or the 25th, we throw Rob Kuntz in there. And get him rolling.
Huzzah!
Yeah, I have something on the 25th. I don't have a banner for it yet. All right, let's do the giveaways, and we're raiding the darling, and we'll get moving because I've been wife summoned here. So here we go. Okay, closing this out. Let's see who wins. Yeah, Curtis, you better be around for that too. You make a guest appearance. So Grognardian, you get your choice, and JR.
Congratulations, guys.
Yeah, congratulations. I think that's Grognardian. It's one of his or her first wins. I think it's his.
Yeah, I don't think I remember.
Yeah, let me see. Is Grognardian in? Is Grognardian on? I don't see them in chat. Uh-oh. I know JR's there.
They were just there.
Were they just there?
But they're not now.
Yeah.
I don't see them now.
Maybe they
wait a few seconds and see. Yeah.
Should I it's up to, should I pull another one or should I? It's up to you. I'll do another one because he's not there. I don't think he's there. So we're going to go to someone else because that's just the way. So I got JR's there. So you got it. I know you're there. The other winner is Rob. There you go. I know Rob's there. There you
Congrats,
go.
Rob.
Yeah. So
Yep.
all right.
Congrats.
So I got Rob and I got JR. So we got you. And then I'll get the gift certificates out. I forgot for Kama and Josarius from yesterday morning. That was my bad. I completely forgot. So just too much going on. So we'll see. Thank you all for the great stream tonight. Thank you, Alan and Les and Anna. And we'll see you all Wednesday night for Legends and Lore. Cool. Thanks. All right, sit tight, please. Let's go into Darling with like 85-90. I think that would be awesome. Eric Mona's playing, so say hello.
Thanks for tuning in, all you beautiful people.
Yeah, thank you all so very, very much. Jay hit a wrong button. I normally don't hit too many wrong buttons lately, but I'm hitting them at the end. So let me set the raid up here. Stream manager, talking to myself here. Yep. Alright. Let's see what we get. There may be a lot of double watchers over there, so we may not get as many as... Oh, look at that. 93. Wow. 5, 4, 3,
that's good.
2, 1. See you Wednesday night. Thank you all. Have a good weekend.
That was fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep, it popped over.
93. That's awesome.